been a while.
It's a heck of a job. I tell you, it's really a heck of a job.
Welcome, everybody. This is Tesla's Q2 earnings call. We are going to do a whole show here. We've got the full panel joining us as well. This is what we typically do. Today, it's the pre-show. And then at 1 o'clock, in about 20 minutes from now, Tesla will drop their financials deck. We'll go through that in detail. We'll see if they have a good quarter or not. Expectations are high this quarter. Although I think the cash burn or the amount of money that they're going to spend for capital might go up a lot higher this year for this quarter. Then at 2:30, that will be the actual event. We will live stream that on the same channel here. And then afterwards, we'll do a quick post-show analysis. As you probably gotten used to by now, we always bring together the top Tesla retail analysts. Jeff Lutz will join us later. He's an expert in manufacturing supply chain. We got Alexandra Mertz, board and governance. We got James from Invest Answers, finance and stock analysis. We'll have Søren Basher joining us shortly as well, finance and robotics. And we have Nick Gibbs, investing and stock analysis. Let's open it up to the panel here. What are you guys feeling about this particular quarter? What do you think, James?
I think the quarter will be good based on everything that we know. But what'll be bad is the CapEx spend. People are used to Tesla making free cash flow. That's probably not going to happen this quarter, nor for the next 3 quarters. And that will ding the stock. But, I've been in Tesla for a long time, 10 and a half years. I've never seen anything like the sentiment right now. You would swear the stock is trading at $50. I can't figure it out. I think the problem is expectations were set so high and hopes were dashed. People thought there would be 10,000 cybercabs running around the streets, and that's not happened yet. I think that's a big part of the problem. But from the Tesla community, even the Tesla community are throwing mud at each other right now. It reminds me very much of the crypto space too. It's like we're on the cusp of so much good stuff, but people are just out of patience. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, Alexandra, are you expecting a negative earnings call? What happened last quarter was when they announced that they were going to increase CapEx from 20 billion to 25 billion. That's what made the stock drop significantly. Tesla, however, has always said that they didn't say that they were going to only do 20 billion. They were like, up to 20 billion or more. In fact, they said something like that, and then they said more, and then people reacted to it. So are you expecting with even possibly high? You've been saying that they might actually even announce even higher CapEx. What's your expectation?
If you look at everything that's going underway, right? We've seen this impressive video where they took down the SNX line in Fremont to build the Optimus line that is in the end going to produce 1 million Optimus per year. They're building multiple Optimus lines in Austin because Austin is supposed to then produce 10 million Optimus per year. We are having 6 factories currently under constructions. We're talking expansion plans. We're constantly investing in GPUs. All this comes at a cost. And I'm always on the side, I'd rather overshoot with CapEx announcements so that then afterwards I look good in how I perform. So I would rather have them pull the Band-Aid and announce the huge number they will need. And I think that huge number is much more in the 35 to 40 billion range of what is coming. Now, it all depends on how you announce it. Do you announce it from January 2026 to December 2026? That may still be something between 25 and 30. If you announce it in the 12 months rolling forward now, from July to next year, June, that's where my numbers come in. So it all depends on the way this is set. And that has an impact on free cash flow. And free cash flow may be negative already. The market expects it, Wall Street expects it to be negative around 3.2 billion, if I recall it right. It can go up to 5. It's always very difficult to estimate how much they're already spending on capital expenditure because we don't know, how quickly these GPUs are coming in, how quickly they're paying the people that are building the factories and all that. We saw that the lithium refinery has really now reached the first level of production. So that is typically a step where you pay a lot of people when you reach those milestones. So we could have already a more negative free cash flow. On the other side, we have exceeded by far the delivery of costs in Q2 by 25%, which had no impact on the stock. I mean, everything is so frustrating when you talk about the stock. I don't even want to talk about the stock. But anyway, so there are a couple of things pulling this quarter on the numbers that I do believe, everybody will be able to adjust once we see what they publish, but it's very difficult to estimate. So my estimate is rather very conservative, a free cash flow of about 5 billion, meaning we're melting down from 44 billion in the Treasury Department down to 39. Like I said, I'd rather have them pull the Band-Aid now and give us a number with which we can really run for the next coming 12 months on CapEx expenditure.
Okay, and then Nick?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the biggest quarters Tesla has had in a long time. A lot because of what Alexandra and James talked about with sentiment. Sentiment is a really big deal for the stock right now. If you look at the market, Tesla's essentially the only name left out there that is trading or moving because of the story of what they're going to do, the future potential. Pretty much all the other companies right now that are sucking up all the liquidity out there have amazing earnings, amazing margins, 70, 80, 90% year-over-year growth. Tesla's the only one that is kind of bucking that trend. We see Palantir selling off. You see a lot of these other names are story stocks kind of selling off. So this is going to be very, very big. I don't think CapEx is going to matter for this call. I think people expect that right now. What people want is two things. One, to see the FSD subscriptions go up in a way that's meaningful. And two, to get some clarity on what's going on with the rollout of Cybercab and robotaxis. To get some clarity on why some of these milestones that were set, that were talked about. And I know there's lots of drama out there on X right now about what they say, what they didn't say, how they phrased it. Look, at the end of the day, we can see what's in the earnings call. We can hear what they said. We can see what's in the deck. I don't think anyone's under the impression that they've hit every milestone that they've talked about over the last few quarters. And I think what people want is just a little clarity, what's going on? Let us, kind of like Alexander said, rip the Band-Aid off with CapEx, rip the Band-Aid. Just tell us. If we have to wait for FSD 15 because you think that's the answer, then tell us. If you guys are having trouble with getting the infrastructure laid out, then tell us. If it's a regulatory thing you're waiting on, then tell us. Just be transparent with us. And I think what happens is they set these goals and then people latch onto those goals, which for better or worse, we are all inherently very bullish on Tesla. And we can, take these goals and really lean in on them, especially when it's supposed to happen in the next 90 days, because that's kind of that timeline they gave out. And I think that's reasonable. But I think they need to deliver a clear message. Like I said, they are the only story stock out there right now that's at the multiple they are. I mean, look at all these other stocks. Their PEs are dropping and their earnings are shooting up. They're getting cheaper, except Tesla. So Tesla is really going to be impacted if they don't deliver a good story, a good message. And I think really at the end of the day, FSD subscription uptake is going to be the kind of sleeper thing that could potentially really set this off. So in my opinion, after this call, it's 350 or 400. It's going to be one or the other. And so again, I know a lot of people think about hey, long-term, all that stuff. Okay, that's cool and all, but wouldn't it be more fun to think long-term while we're at 500, 600 a share? Isn't that more fun? So that's what I think. And by the way, I am pretty bullish for today. I got the Tesla Mezcal out. So I've never brought this up for the earnings call. So this just lets you know, I'm pretty optimistic.
Why are you bullish? Tell us that. What specifically made you bullish today?
I think Tesla understands what the sentiment is right now. And they need to make sure, whether it's for a merger, whether it's just to make sure that they don't lose the crowd, right? It's kind of like the mob. You don't want to lose the mob. If you ever watch Gladiator, if they want a merger, they need retail investors. Alexandra can do her best and she will rally up probably everyone. But if the stock's at 300, people are not going to be happy and wanting to vote for this. Even Alexandra won't be able to get that done.
Oh, you
So-
wait and see. We'll see. Let me quickly address that because that was one of the questions in the feed. What is still my merger theory? My merger theory has not moved because I had all these breadcrumbs, and a stubborn old lady. So my breadcrumbs said that they laid everything out, the SpaceX index inclusions, lockup openings, and all that, to have that window at or just after the SpaceX earnings call, now August 4th, to announce that. It's always the absorbing entity, the surviving entity that announces it, right? So it's not going to happen today. I don't expect anything today on the merger except for them dismissing questions concerning the merger. I mean, if they start addressing questions, I would be very surprised. I really don't think so. So 4th of August or around that is my scenario still. Now, having said that, SpaceX being where it is makes this merger extremely complicated. Could that be a reason to delay it? Of course, because in my scenario, as you all know, 6-8 weeks ago, I thought SpaceX would be easily at 200. Now, then we would have my dream scenario, I can say it now, we would have an announcement of a 4.2 multiplier because it's 4.2, right? And that would put Tesla at 840, and everybody was happy, right? We would have moved from 420 to 840 in those terms at that moment. Now SpaceX being at 120 is making this impossible because there's just the base for the multiplication is so much lower. So maybe Joe Buckley's floor comes back in if they want to do it now. I feel a certain need for urgency, midterms, 2 more years of the Trump administration and political favor. So I do believe there is favorability. I do believe there is an urgency to do it. Now, Matt, the question is at what cost? So am I less confident because of the SpaceX price? Yeah, because it makes the whole thing much more complicated. But if I'm still stubbornly invested in my August 21st calls, but like Herbert knows, I always lose on calls. So please never follow me because I'm really bad at that. So just putting this out there. But in terms of governance and the way it was laid out, it all pointed to that. It just may not be possible at today's SpaceX price.
Yeah, and SpaceX is tanking. It's 115 right now, and
It's
Tesla's
crazy.
falling into the close as well.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things which just always runs counter before such an earnings call as well, when the stock is very weak going into an earnings call, it tends to pop afterwards. So, but I don't know because the sentiment is so low right now. I don't know if that's going to happen. This is one of the first times, and Herbert, you've had me on these calls now for years probably. I can always tell which direction it's going to go. Today, I do not know. I literally don't know up or down. As Nick says, 350 or 400, and 350 is not very far away. $23. So could even be worse.
Okay, well, in about 5 minutes, Tesla will drop their financials, and so we will download it as soon as possible, the shareholder deck, and we'll share that. In the meantime, we got Jeff Lutz joining us as well. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Jeff.
Bring us some good news, Jeff. Cheer us up.
I'm gonna share my thinking here. Unfortunately, I'm gonna be a little bit more negative because Nick was saying that he's very bullish today. If SpaceX is really low, like under 120 or wherever it is now,
115.
then 115, it's even worse. Then do you think that they're going to come out and say, everything's great for Tesla? They're going to try to, pump it in any way? I don't think they're going to do that. They're going to want SpaceX stock to go up as high as possible. Tesla is going to go where it's going to go in terms of like a rollout. I've been saying for a long time now that I expect Cybercab rollout to be a lot longer than we expect because they need to validate the FSD works really well for that. And I think that we're probably headed in that direction. We're probably about a month or two away from that before you get the first Cybercab rollout. But here we are at the earnings call. They did not do some big event on the weekend where they said first Cybercab rollout. They kind of said, yes, there's 2 new cities where FSD is rolling out. That's great news, but it's not. That's was part of expectation of what they would roll out by then. So I think this could be a very bad negative call. And the other part of what I was going to say was that even if Elon does what he does, which he should continue doing, setting the direction for the company, setting what he thinks is going to happen in the future with his caveats, you can hear the sentiment of the investors right now. They're tired of that, and they're probably going to not get over bullish of that anymore. So unless Ashok says it, unless there's some real actual milestones that they're going to guarantee that's going to be hit, I'm not sure what else they can actually say at today's call.
I think that was to you, Jeff.
Oh.
No, that was to you, Nick, but go ahead.
Oh, that was to me. Oh.
Sure.
Oh, okay, sure. Wow. Okay. Well, it caught me off guard. I'm like, what's Jeff gonna say? I'm like watching YouTube here. So let's start off with the rollouts in Tampa and Orlando. First of all, thank you guys. Thank you, Tesla. Very happy. I'll be testing it out soon. I was just down in Miami. If you guys didn't see it, I did a whole YouTube video about it. So very thankful for that. However, the investment community is not stupid. They've seen this playbook before, and they think that they're getting played again. We saw them announce Dallas and Houston last earnings right before it happened. And where's Dallas and Houston at this point? Now, I'm sure there's plenty of other things that we don't know, but it just feels a bit performative. So I think they're going to have to talk a little bit to that as well. But the reason I'm more so bullish is because I think they have to provide clarity in the way they haven't in the last couple of earnings calls. I think, look, honestly, when Lars spoke with you and Jeff, just put my conspiracy hat on, I'm not convinced that the event or the employees using Cybercab, I'm not convinced that that was the news. I kind of think they're like, oh, damn, this is really causing a stir. Let's talk about something, put it out there and say cool news. Again, maybe it's just conspiracy theory, but it just, I don't know. I think that they are well aware of the sentiment on X. And I think it led to them, hey, we got to give something. And I kind of think that's what's going to happen on this earnings call. I think they're going to give, market just closed, SpaceX 115, Tesla 374. But I think they're going to give more information because they, like I said before, they can't lose the retail base. And right now they're seeing division within the retail base. And don't be wrong, like everyone's still bullish on Tesla. It's just people are frustrated and you have infighting. It's going to take a while, Herbert. Probably like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But so I think not that their backs are against the wall, because at the end of the day, I'm not sure how much they really care about the stock in general, but I do think they care about making sure that they've got the mob with them. And the retail is the mob. And Elon's been able to do a lot of things because he has retail supporting him. And so I don't think retail is asking for a lot. I think retail is just saying like, hey, you missed these milestones. Just tell us what's going on. Like, just complete the circle. That's all we're asking for. Let us know what's going on. What's the latest with Cybercab? Is there a problem? Are you just waiting for FSD 15? Like, just a little clarity. And I think this will go a long shot. And again, I think this is all going to be about FSD subscriptions. I think people aren't talking about that enough. And if they see a big uptake in FSD subscriptions, I think that that alone can move the stock, because that starts the whole story of where this is going. And at least people can put, the Gary Blacks of the world can put that in Excel sheet and see what type the uptick is. Now we've got, 2 data points that creates a line. Now we can start to extrapolate. So I don't know. And honestly, just listening to everyone here being so bearish, it makes me take the other side. Anytime you're bearish, I'll take the other side. When you guys are bullish, I'll take the downside. So,
well, on the good side to all of that. Oh, sorry, Jeff, you go.
I was just going to say, sentiment is pretty low at this point. I think if we just reset, the earnings call regarding revenue, earnings, and so forth, I think there's some importance on that. But I think what a lot of the street is going to be looking at is actually just, is there something significant happening with the cash position? It's already predicted to be negative. Is it going to be overly negative? Is there something meaningfully changing with the CapEx position? If none of those are out of bounds and gross margins look like they're improving, continuing to improve, and there's no surprises on revenue and EPS, then the story just shifts over to the robotaxi story. But you have to clear some of those hurdles first. There's some tripwires in there with free cash flow and with CapEx that could trip up the market. But once you get through that, then it's telling that robotaxi story. And I think we've been actually more balanced than we get credit for in these conversations. And who cares? I mean, I'm on here as kind of someone with some expertise in product rollout and supply chain and how products are delivered to market. I get asked questions and I provide input. I think it's fine. I think it's totally appropriate to question management and read the transcripts and what did they say? What's a goal? What's a milestone? We think this is going to happen, and then question like, okay, these things didn't happen. What happened in the interim? What changed? What is there new information that we should be aware of as investors? Is there something that's meaningfully changed the trajectory of what you were proposing before? Tell us the why behind that. What we got on the last earnings call from Tesla is them just pulling the guidance because they were almost over guiding and over specifying in the January earnings call, the doubling every month and the so forth. And then we got the April call. They basically, didn't guide on anything specific relative to that. So I think we have to get back to some medium. And I think what investors want to understand is, why are things changing relative to your prior expectations? And what do you see happening? What do you see happening moving forward? And then finally, I would just say that the people that think that Tesla is either lying or not working hard enough, I would question that. If you've gone through a safety critical product rollout, you're going to have this axiom of what's important, what are the things you can't move or change. And all I would say, again, I want to go up against the earnings print coming out. All I would say is that is not the case. And I believe they have the right intentions. It's really a question around the communications, the quality of the communications, and meeting these milestones. And I think it's okay to ask the questions.
And this is why we're negative. Stock has just fell $6 to $3.69. Don't know why. I don't see the deck yet.
Everyone's scared.
Yeah. Now there is a lot of good news. The good news, like the things we have seen, new models, the new Model Y in the US, are then record vehicle volume. We know Optimus is coming. Cybercab, they're producing a lot of them. They're staging them all over the country. Energy is a killer, and FSD uptake is everywhere. We see that in the miles.
I do have a theory about why Cybercab's taking longer than expected. No idea if it's right, so it's complete.
Oh, okay, it's here.
Okay, never mind. I'll shut up.
No, just take it. I still need to download it, so go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with the Cybercab, there's a lot of new camera positions. If you guys remember when the Cybertruck came out, it was the same thing, and it takes time to get all that data, and they probably need lots of volume of data in order to fit the model to the new angles.
Yeah,
and I think that might be all that's waiting for it, and I think that's why they probably started the Model YL outside the US before they brought it here. So when they brought it here, it would be ready with FSD. That's kind of my.
Yep, that's what I've been saying. That's exactly.
You've been
what
on vacation.
Yeah, I've been saying it for months. Okay, here we go.
Well,
operating cash flow
is better.
4.7. Free cash flow
Instead of negative $3 billion, it was negative 1.1. Over 100 billion trailing 12 months.
Let's look at the data. So yeah, FSD supervised continue to grow, but we'll take a look at exactly how much.
EBITDA margin tanked. Wall Street doesn't like that. 11.6%. $15 days of supply. They did greater than 100 billion in trailing 12-month revenue. That's a new record. Revenue's up.
Nothing
What
here
happened?
in Outlook.
What is 32 EPS gap net income? Why did it fall so much, and why did margin fall? $2.4 billion in R&D. They did 4.7 billion in operating cash flow, which is higher than normal, but they spent a lot. So negative capex.
20.2 billion in revenue.
Record net new subscriptions. Over 55% of new deliveries include FSC subscriptions of new record. That's a record. That's fantastic. Over 55%.
What was it?
That's huge. Over
Sorry,
55% of new deliveries included FSC subscriptions.
And it's up 56% year over year to 1.48 million.
Okay, well, Nick got your FSD subscription.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Still a hockey stick. FSD miles going up.
Everything I see, like core vehicles, energy, services, are all very healthy and all growing very fast. Why is it getting punished?
Stock still falling, James?
Yeah, 364. So it fell $15 today, $10 in after hours.
Well, it's falling because the earnings per share is lower than they expected.
Exactly.
What's the earnings per share?
Well, it's 32 cents.
32 cents.
And they
Everything
expected
was
50
52
and
to
some
54.
60. And so it must be, there must be some.
There's a big expense hidden somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not the XAI investment because that one got appreciated.
Is it stock-based compensation?
Lower average cost per vehicle, primarily due to lower inbound duties, so that helps the margin. Positive forex impact. So all those things that usually can be the surprises, are rather positive. Or lower reg credit.
It should have been
Lower
forecasted.
vehicle average selling price. Okay. Yeah, so reg credits are now down to 380 million. Sorry, 146 million. Sorry, I'm in the wrong column. So that's much less than ever before.
That's cool. They're going to have an Optimus Academy.
Yeah, he said that last earnings call, I think, with like 30,000 in there, which could be a ways off. Alexander,
in operating expenses, we have 400 million more for research and development. We have 150 million more for selling, general, and admin.
CapEx nearly 6 billion.
Yeah, CapEx, we have to wait what they say.
And I think record free cash flow.
32 of diluted EPS is much lower than they expected.
Yeah.
I just wonder where it comes from.
says progress also continue on battery pack capacity expansion, the main limiting factor to near-term vehicle production volume increase. But Cybercab production and Tesla Semi remains on track. Oh, no. Cybercab began production in Gigafactory, Texas, and Tesla Semi remains on track for production this year at a new factory in Nevada.
Yeah. If you look at the down below, it says that Cybercab's in production.
Yeah.
But that's it. They don't say anything else.
Yeah. There's really nothing in this deck that I can tell.
Nothing. Yeah.
This is, as Jeff would say, we didn't trip over any tripwire.
Well,
So-
they added another 120 million to the probability of a milestone being reached for Elon. It's still obviously small bucks compared to what it would really cost us, but that is a step in the right direction.
You said they doubled their online compute in the first half. So that
Yeah.
could be hammering into some of this operating margin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and you see the SpaceX equity investment unrealized gain, they actually have it as a negative of $1 billion. I don't understand why, because on the 30th of June, the price was so high and we bought it pre-IPO. You see that on slide 29, about 8 lines down. SpaceX equity investment unrealized gain, minus 1.005 billion. And I don't understand, because we bought it pre-IPO, so we obviously bought it much lower than the 130, and then it was much higher end of June. Why would that be negative? That is incomprehensible for me.
Just to add to the fun here, Alphabet posts 44.9 billion capital spending during Q2, above expectation. And the Houthis deploy missiles and drones to attack ships in the Red Sea.
Alphabet's
There was-
up after hours about 1%.
Yeah. Energy storage, another hit. There was some issue with a warranty for a vendor cell issue. And that regulated credit was a big hit. I think that hit the EBITDA margin from 439 down to 146 million.
No, from 380. No, we were at 380 last, or 340. 380. We went from 380 to 146. No, the biggest hit is that negative billion from the SpaceX investment. That is incomprehensible. Got a billion here, billion there, those you feel.
What about this? Operating lease vehicles.
Yeah, but that's usually stable.
Where does the Cybercab? You guys, Larry was saying that's as an asset. Where does it appear?
Well, I mean, if we have, what's the max number of cars we currently have? I'm not saying they are all Fazats or not
1,000.
Fazats, but let's say we have 1,000. 1,000 at 20,000 is obviously a lot, but let's just go. What is 1,000 times 20,000? That's 20 million, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, that's 20 million. So you won't
It's
see
not
20
much.
million in here.
It's not a big deal. Okay.
You would
Real
see it in
quick,
the assets line.
Yep.
here's the spin from CNBC. Tesla reported weaker than expected earnings for the quarter, but beat on revenue. The company's stock price is down 17% this year, while the NASDAQ is up. Earlier this month, Tesla reported a 25% increase in year-over-year auto deliveries for the second quarter, following consecutive annual declines.
Okay, there's a second number I don't understand, which is minus 1.2 billion of prepaid expenses and other assets in the changes in operating assets and liability. So there are now two numbers I don't understand.
Herbert, the other reason that I'm really bullish about this call that's going to come up is because, one, I see how the stock's reacting right now. That's one thing. But the more that we see these cybercabs be created, it's like, I feel like it's a forcing function to like shift the timelines left. It's like, I don't know how many they can make. I mean, they're going to have way more than Waymo in a month from now at that rate. Like, they just keep printing these out.
Yeah, and they're basically saying that they've the engineering test drives of production cybercabs on public roads began in Q2, and they've now begun offering employee rides in cybercabs in Giga Texas this month. Both are important precursors to cybercab deployment in our robotaxi fleets. Obviously, they don't wrap timing around that, but I don't know what else is after that. What's after those 2 miles? I don't think there is anything after those 2 milestones, and it sounds very similar to them doing employee rides on Model Ys. So, it's fairly imminent. I think you're right, Nick, that there will be a larger volume deployment, at least available, than other services.
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say too on that, Jeff, is that, well, one, I hope some analysts ask the question, like, okay, you say like this is the precursor. Okay, well, what's the timeline? How long does that precursor have to last?
Yeah,
A
just
month?
get it out there.
A certain amount of miles? Like, help us contextualize that. But the other thing is, and this is mainly for people who are looking to stock, okay? The stocks can do what the stocks can do. But I feel like, I always say this, no one knows anything. I always like to use examples like, if we would have told you at the start of the year that, we were going to potentially take over Greenland, invade Venezuela, go to war with Iran, close the Strait of Hormuz, oil go up, and the stock market would be at all-time highs, you guys would say you're nuts. And yet here we are. All right. So no one knows anything. So take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt, but I have to believe that once Tesla has more robotaxis out there than Waymo, the market is going to reflect that in the stock price. Because at that point, that was first place. So how do they catch up now? It's over at that point. So, and it doesn't take that much. Like I almost feel like they're going to make sure that when they actually do this real deployment, they are outpacing Waymo out the gate. Or not out the gate, but over the course of like a month or 2 months, like they're going to have the vehicles ready to go to be able to outpace Waymo. I don't think we're going to just see one day 3,000 vehicles out there. I think that would be only someone who's never scaled any type of product would do that.
Correct.
Now correct me because I'm completely confused. How much did we invest in SpaceX? We invested $2 billion,
In
correct?
XAI?
Yeah,
No,
in XAI.
yeah.
So XAI. So how in the world can we pre-IPO invest $2 billion and then in one quarter, so on the 30th of June, SpaceX was up, it IPO'd, it was up, and now have in that same quarter a loss of $1 billion, half of it. Right, there's somebody telling me the negative sign simply means Tesla spent $2 billion in cash to acquire the stake. That's standard accounting. Yeah, but I mean, then it should be minus $2 billion, and it is on page 29. It's minus $1 billion. There's nothing that makes any sense to me.
Would that be appreciation, that other billion?
So there's somebody says, Alexander, the 1 billion markup boosted net income, but no cash came in. SpaceX is, oh, so they took it back out. So actually we made $1 billion and then they took it back out of the calculation. Okay, so that is that. Okay. Okay, good. Let's do it. So the SpaceX equity added 0.22 and yet we only finished having with 0.32. So where is it?
I think we lost James, eh? Okay, so I think the most important slide is obviously it's Robotaxi. That's the story, isn't it? I mean, so yes, we have some positive news about the earnings, some negative news, but most importantly, it's Robotaxi. So I agree with you, Nick, that Cybercab production means that Cybercab deployment in the robotaxi fleet is coming. Nothing here is saying that it's anything delayed. In fact, what they said was these are precursors, and that's exactly what I've been saying for a while now. That there's things they need to do before Cybercab can be used in production in robotaxi. So as long as I don't hear anything negative about, we're slowing down production or we have to do more testing, it looks like they're on track.
Can we just pause there for 1 second? I don't think it's as long as you don't hear anything negative. I think just the fact that that's not going to be good enough anymore. Now you got to say like why, like.
Well, that was my point. That is where I'm getting at right now, which is okay. This is all good, but it's like, yes, Cybercab will likely be rolled out in big numbers in the next few months and onward for the final year, but doesn't mean that today's earnings call. This is a very muted earnings deck, and I'm not sure what they can say verbally during the call. Usually, that is what matters more, the color that they give. We're going to want to hear from Ashok Goswami to tell us how confident he is about the rollout of robotaxi. That will make me feel more comfortable about the following months, but I'm not sure that this earnings call today is going to move the stock positively. We'll see. Hopefully I'm really wrong, but this deck doesn't show anything new, right?
You just want me to go against you, don't you? We're going green, guys. We're going green.
I'm usually wrong, so I hope you're right. You do take the opposite side. You go against the grain, and so you're usually. I hope you're right.
Let me be happy, at least for a little bit.
You got your FSD. Is this your FSD? I mean, over 55% of new deliveries, including FSD subscriptions, pretty good. That's a good number.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting I mean, there's a different mix in terms of gross margins. We're building less S and X, although it was built in the quarter. It was a kind of a new SKU that was entered in, but for both. But yeah, it looks like they should explain like what the hit on gross margins. Is it purely mix driven? Is there something else behind it? And of course, when you're starting ramp of a new model like the Model YL and multiple geographies, that's that start of the line is going to be typically lower gross margin, but I don't know what contribution that is given the volume. So understanding that, energy dropped, I think, in the low 20s for gross margin. So what happened there? Is this tariffs? Is this something else? They should kind of go through what's happening on energy gross margins. I think that's part of the negative reaction I think that on the good side, less cash burn than expected.
Correct.
On the not so good side, the gross margins, the core business was a little bit lower, so they should walk through.
And actually significantly lower. So we have good top line revenues, 26% up on the year, 28 billion. Gross profits 4.75. That's already less, and you're right, that is probably the product mix that is now less profitable. Reg credits going down to 146. We said that, and excluding those credits, gross margins for automobile were still only 16.3%. We obviously had hoped those were staying in the 19% range. And then the heavy operational expenses, 4.3.5 billion, out of which more than half is on research and development, AI training, Optimus, Cybercab, all the research, but also administrative costs up. And so the difference between those 4.7 coming in and those 4.3 going out is only 400 million, 3.98. That is not a lot. That is soft, if you want to call it like that. And so what came to the rescue? Well, interest income, 422 million. And then the unrealized gain on SpaceX, so what I had interpreted wrong is actually that we made more than 700 million on it. Well, it's 1 billion that we made on it. It's in two parts. So that brings the pre-tax income then back to 1.3. But if we wouldn't have made that SpaceX 2 billion investment, it looked really dire. So the calculation for earnings per share is on the basis of the shares not including the restricted stock of Elon. So that's 3.5 billion, and that's how we go to the 32 cents. And while record deliveries in number look good, in actual average price per car, it didn't translate to as much. And then we clearly had the SpaceX gain, but we also had less rec credits. I think that sums it up.
Nice.
Yep.
Not to try to find something where there might not be anything, but the way they talk about FSD supervised, it seems like it's worded a little funny, because they talk about with over 55% of new deliveries including FSD subscription. But what's the growth on it? And honestly, like whenever you initially go to get FSD, like it's free out the gate. You know, they give like those promotions like 1 to 3 months. So it's like, I don't know if this is like a little, you know, I don't know. Like, I hope there's nothing here, but like, why aren't we talking about cumulative quarter over quarter net new? Like, how much churn did we have? How much did we actually add? I don't know. It's a weird way to talk about SaaS product.
Yeah. It actually feels like it's pretty healthy growth, but I agree there could be more. I mean, they probably sold roughly 200,000 cars in areas that have FSD. Not every area in the world has FSD, as we know. You know, they probably did 120 to 130 in the US. And I mean, if it feels like there's existing car owners that added it, and it feels like I think Herbert said that they quoted 55% of new car purchases. I don't know what that compares to in other prior quarters, but looks like this is, you know, it's improving rather significantly. But yeah, I think there's going to be more information they could share.
But you know what I mean? Like, imagine if Netflix came out and they said, you know, they added another 100 million, but by the way, we did first 3 months for free. You know, like sign up now, but you get your first 3 months and just keep your credit card on. If you forget, we'll charge you. It's like, I mean, I'm not saying that's what they're doing. It's just like, it's a weird way not to talk about, like, especially for SaaS. Like, and again, it's only 2 quarters. So like maybe they want to wait for a whole year's worth of numbers, but it's hard not to try to find anything, you know, is there anything we're missing? Like trying to just play devil's advocate, because it's easy to be like, dude, 55%, that's incredible. Especially with me lately, you know, like when we drove down to Miami, obviously we used FSD the whole way, but that was actually the first time I ever started actively seeing people using FSD all around me. And then we were just like, I literally just flew back in today from Cape Cod and we rented a Model X there. And we were using FSD everywhere. I'll be coming out with a video about that shortly. But again, seeing people all around using FSD, it's like, oh man, look at this. Like, I'm telling you, 2 months ago, I never saw anyone use FSD. Mm-hmm. And I would watch people, I'd be like, what the hell is wrong with these people? Or they like, they're not getting it. They own Teslas and they're not using FSD. And then now in the last like 6 weeks, I'm seeing people use it. It's kind of crazy to see what's slowly happening.
Yeah, I think that 55% number at delivery is indicative of some sort of discovery, like something good is happening here. Mm-hmm. Because this is not a cheap thing for people. It'd probably be one of the more expensive monthly subscriptions in their home. So the fact that more than half of the vehicles delivered, I would say North America, I should say, in North America had it. It's pretty meaningful. But yeah, there could be some churn in there, so that would be helpful to understand. Yeah, it'd be interesting to understand what that number is for prior quarters too.
You guys are all smarter than me. Maybe you guys can give me a good answer for this. We want people to use FSD, right? Like Tesla wants that. It makes people safer, right? Just everyone knows the story. Everyone gets it. We all use FSD. why not offer a per mile price? Like if you pay for a month, it's more cost effective. But if you want to use it per mile, yeah, it's gonna be a little more, but you can just hit it and then it charges automatically to your card, just like you go supercharge, you plug in. You know, use it, great. You don't use it, great. You know, and maybe you do like, hey, the first 2 miles are free in case you accidentally trigger it. Like, I don't get why we wouldn't do that to lower the barrier to entry. Because like, Jeff, you're right. Like for a lot of people, like just being able to test it out for once, like, hey, I'll pay 50 cents per mile just to test this out real quick. Like, why wouldn't I don't get why they wouldn't do something like that.
It's the opposite. Yeah, it's the opposite, Nick. I mean, if you are being charged on a per, you know, here's your Netflix, you know, capability streaming, but you charge per show. You think that they're going to try once? It's actually the opposite. They're going to be like nickel and diming. Like, oh my God, do I want to pay $2 for the next show? Do I want to pay $2 for, you know, my ride from here to Seattle or to Vancouver? And if giving out the free month is the way to get them to test it, and then from then on you charge monthly, then you use it as often as you want, don't even think about it. That's
the problem is no one values free.
Yeah, no, that's true. So I think the biggest, is there news here where you look at I think you alluded to it, I think, Jeff, where if you look at the AI training capacity ramp, it was a huge jump here in March, but it looks like we're about to do another huge jump in September. And possibly, look, we more than doubled our on-site compute in Texas. And then you guys heard during the first half of 2026, and you heard that there's actually rumors now that they're actually going to build a massive data center in Texas. I don't know if that's SpaceX AI, I think it is, instead of Tesla, but they might be doubling down on this.
I'll tell you this. NVIDIA has some new little chippies that are getting ready to go. And Elon tends to be a first mover. And that's the extent of what I'm allowed to say. That's all public known things.
Yeah. He's definitely, he's going to get allocation first because he takes them out of inventory and he lights them up faster than anyone. That's public information as well. So that NVIDIA would love that. So I'd have to think that he's NVIDIA's like favorite. Yeah. Well, not guinea pig, but like favorite client to like, as soon as there's chips available, he gets them first because he's got 2 or 3 homes for them relative to what he's building. So he's always going to take what he asked for and he's going to light them up. The faster he lights them up, the faster he asks for more. But I get back to, I think that could be some of this spend that's happening here. Looks like the after hours is stabilizing a bit, even a little bit improved. So typically we're higher on the print and then we get into the earnings call and then there's some turd dropped in the earnings call and then it goes the other way. So hopefully we get the reverse of that. Sorry for my technical description of that. So
this is my favorite, Jeff. This is my favorite version.
Yeah, hopefully we get the opposite of that. Nick's bullishness.
What's the opposite of turd, Jeff?
I mean, highly polished, maybe turd. But I hope they address some of the shareholder concerns. Because I think, again, if you're asking why is something not happening in the course in time that you kind of projected it, that's fine because we're doing something really hard. But then answer, okay, after you explain like we're doing something really hard, something nobody's ever done before, safety is critical. And oh, by the way, like we're actually making a business. I don't think other people understand this. Other people launching robo-taxis, this is like going to like your junior high or high school science fair and like, wow, look at the poster board. Look what they've done. They pushed a couple of these things out. They won't even go on the record and tell you when they're going to build something that's actually profitable. At least Elon and his team have cleared, have focused on the objective of sub 30 cents per mile. And yeah, there needs to be some clarity about, okay, when do you get to that? When do we get this wider deployment? No question about it. But these other companies won't even answer the question of, are they even going to be profitable and by when? So I think people should kind of respect the level of difficulty. They're launching something that can actually be a business. they could have launched a science project 2 years ago, and some mapped out robo-taxi service a couple of years ago. But but at the same time, I think it's appropriate to find out what's going on with the timelines, because I think that could move this sentiment in either direction on the actual call.
Yeah, and I read or heard somewhere that Elon had committed to purchasing 30% of the Vera Rubins somewhere. I can't remember if it was somebody told me in confidence or I read it somewhere, but he has a huge amount of those. And back to your question as well, Nick, at the beginning regarding FSD by mile. I know people that are happy to pay $8,000 one time, but they wouldn't want to pay $100 a month. That's just a weird pricing thing in people's heads. Plus, I think the administration for tracking the miles and disengagement, et cetera, are tricky. And also, I think, wasn't it tied to one of his milestones as well, 10 million FSD subscriptions, which could put a wrinkle in that too. So that's why I don't think pay per mile makes sense.
Wait, why does it make sense? Because it wouldn't be advantageous for Elon's goals and why else?
Well, there's probably liability. For example, disengaging, engaging, just doing it one-off, it could create a big headache for the company. Tracking it, billing is probably a real difficult headache as well.
Like, no way. They do charging everywhere. Like there's not an issue. Billing is not an issue.
But there might be a liability issue too.
You could put a
turning
message
it
up
on,
the
crashing,
screen.
and then
These are non-issues. Like I hear you, but I feel like these are just like excuses. Like these are non-issues. These are issues they've already solved because they're doing it on a per month basis. You can implement the same gatekeeping that you have right now for that. Even now, if you sign up for FSD, it charges right to your credit card. It's right on your profile. They're the king of making payment easy. Like I don't know.
Well, final issue then. If you're not willing to pay $3 a day for a chauffeur, you're probably not a serious customer.
No, fair. But that $3 at first, or that whatever you pay initially, might be enough, a little blue magic, right? Anyone? American Gangster? Mm-hmm. You get a little taste of the good stuff, and now, like, okay, all right, now I will go for the 1 month. And at the same time, like, why not have, to your point, James, a 1 year pricing? I'm the type of person, like you just mentioned, I would rather pay $8,000 up front than have this monthly reoccurring cost coming over. I hate subscriptions.
They do that with connectivity now. If you buy a year, you get 2 months free.
And that's what I do every time.
Yep.
You're on mute, Alexandra.
Now I'm not muted anymore. Did we address how CapEx exploded? That we're at 5.8 billion for this quarter?
Yeah, and that took us to minus 1.4 free cash flow negative.
What were you expecting, Alexandra?
Well, I mean, again, I didn't, like I explained in my opening, it's very difficult to know when they pay what, right, for CapEx, because when you build 6 factories, when you change lines, when do you expense is it's impossible for somebody from the outside to understand when that is. But that means, they're on a good rhythm. So I do believe, and I just want to reiterate for those that weren't there at 12:30 Pacific time when we started, I think the most important is now what they guide on CapEx. For this year, we're now at 8? Yeah. So maybe the 25 is still, valid for this year because there's still a big window open. They can double and nearly double and still have enough for the 2 quarters to come. What I would like to know, because last time it wasn't really clear. I tried to re-listen to it a couple of times, but it was like a 2-year guidance. I wasn't sure whether that meant, was it 25 billion each year? Was it 25 this year and next year will be another heavy year, but without a number? If anybody understood that, please clarify, because I still don't. And I would like to have some clarity on that. It could be very well that they hold the 25 billion for this year. Again, let me look at the number. It was 5.7. So this is page 29 in the middle. We had Q1 with nearly 2.5 billion and now 5.7. So we're at 7, 6, 7, 8.5, nearly 8.5 out of 25.
Yeah, I don't view it as being off track. Do you, Alexandra?
No, not yet.
It's on track. Yeah.
At the moment, it's completely on track. It's obviously a
Yeah.
huge step up from the first to the second quarter. It doubled. But the question now is, are we on a trajectory where next quarter we double again? Is this continuing into 2027? And get me right, I want them to invest. Tesla has always been the best investor of their own money. The proof is in the pudding. I just would like some clarity until, where are we going to get this out in the market, especially on days like that? May as well give it all out, and then off we are.
Yeah, CapEx is the story. We'll see what they say, but I'm very happy with 5.7 billion. I think it's what I expected. In fact, everything here was what they said that they were going to do. They said prepare for negative free cash flow. We got negative 1 billion free cash flow.
We expect average cars to come down that much, that gross margin came down.
Why did that happen, by the way, guys?
Well, because we're selling less SNX,
which is higher margin, but they're tiny numbers, and we should have started selling some Model YLs.
No, not at the very end of Q2.
China.
At the very
YL.
Well, I mean, China, the prices are lower than in America, and the market.
Right. True.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
You're right. So, right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to speak to what happened with gross margins. I mean, it's such a deviation from the prior quarter. I would expect the Vaibhav to speak to that, and he should. And if there's any different direction on I think what you're going to watch for is there any different direction on cash flow or CapEx? Because this is a beat on cash. I mean, we were expecting, I think the street was like negative 3.1 or negative 3.3, and he beat it pretty handily. So it's still negative, but they beat it. So if we want to understand what's happening with gross margins, they handily beat revenue. So what happened with gross margins? How did it weigh on EPS? And of course, what's your guidance? So, the street and retail have turned this, into a story where it's less about, those points, and it's going to be more about the robotaxi rollout and getting that to scale. I think they should really break down what's happening, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what's the limiter to kind of accelerating this.
Do you guys have any comments on Optimus? So I know that, like you said, the whole story should be about robotaxi, but I looked at the deck, and the deck basically has 2 sentences on Optimus. You have it here at the very beginning. Construction at our Fremont factory for Optimus began after we decommissioned the Model S and X lines with anticipated production later this year. So nothing new there. And they also had it in the Outlook, where they basically said,
well, they gave themselves some breathing room, Herbert. Elon guided to July, maybe August. I mean, I would take that as summer, but if you want to go to the transcript, start, some amount of production in July. So I think they should update us on that. The picture I saw, people need to understand what the Optimus, it's not going to be this one straight line. There's going to be several sublines because it's a vertically integrated product. Those sub-assembly lines will build parts of Optimus and then feed it into a central, think of it like a central vein to build, to do the final assembly of the product. So I don't know what we're looking at in that picture. It looks like there's some sublines, or that could have been the main line, part of the main line that we're looking at in the picture in the deck. But it's not like they haven't started. And it's not like there's not equipment bolted into the floor. We just don't know exactly, what end state should look like. That's not a complete picture of the factory. That's a portion of it. So if they can give us any guidance on that, but it's not like we're staring at an empty space and they just pulled the S and X out. They've pulled all that out, and they've already reconstituted it for and started installing some of the sublines.
Yeah, I was going to say though, but if you look at the actual webcast, which we'll live stream as soon as it happens at 2:30, which is 45 minutes from now. We'll play it live here, 51 minutes from now. This is their deck. They're showing
just a picture. It's
just a picture, but it's Optimus.
I tell you right now, if they start focusing on Optimus, you're gonna watch the stock tank, guaranteed.
Yeah, agreed.
I'll put money on it right now.
Having watched now so many earnings calls from Tesla, I actually always had the feeling when the deck was
Yes,
rather
100%.
when the deck
100%.
was rather deceiving, the call was rather good. And the other way around, when the deck looked like, oh my God, we're
Yes.
out of the winter, we're done hibernating, and off we are, then you get slammed in the call. It's crazy.
I've been biting my tongue, not saying that. So I'm happy you said it, but I didn't want to jinx anything.
I don't want to jinx it either. And the other thing is, I still believe in my damn merger, so I want this thing to happen. But anyway, here we are.
You moved your merger to August 8th, though, right? Because you just not.
Well,
I
they
always
just announced
said
earnings.
The merger will be at the earnings call of SpaceX. I thought the earnings call of SpaceX would be a week after ours, so I thought it was on the 29th of July, but they announced it for the 4th of July. So depending on that 4th of July, that's what I think is happening.
No, it's going to be 4th of August, not July. August.
Sorry. Yeah.
4th of August. So now it's going to be August 4th. They will announce it at the end during the earnings call for SpaceX, August 4th. That's what your theory is right now.
Typically, a merger is announced by the surviving entity, and then usually you get a press release from both immediately after that saying they've been working on a merger. Here's the proposal. This has to go through all the regulatory approvals and the shareholder votes, and which will happen in the 4 or 5 months following this.
Alexandra, would they say a peep about it, anything at all, today's earnings call for Tesla?
If they say anything, it's because it's not happening. If it will happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks, they have to shut up today. They have to say, I mean, I do actually believe that they will ignore the say question and have told the analysts no questions on the merger. I would expect that. Now, did that happen with Tesla? You never know. And there may be a financial analyst coming with the question, and then we'll see what happens. But if August 4th is the date, again, I have no idea, and I'm usually wrong at that, so please don't follow me. But if that is the plan, they cannot address anything today. Now, I have had people in that merger sphere, because I mean, the funny thing is I get contacted by a lot of people, some people working actively on Wall Street on mergers, not on this one, nobody that is close to this one, telling me different scenarios. And some of these people told me, could very well be that they say today, oh, we're considering a merger, but we have no idea yet about the details. That may take a couple more months. They may address that. I don't think that's realistic. I honestly don't believe so. I think it's going to be at the SpaceX call, if it is at all. And today they will deflect or completely ignore the questions.
Okay, that's important. That's what I was hoping or wanted to hear from you. What thoughts on this comment here? This is on a summary page, and it basically said Tesla is in its largest and most exciting period of investment. From here, there remains much hard work as we aim to revolutionize transportation, energy, and productivity through our leading real-world AI. Scaling will be non-linear.
We know.
And we're focused on long-term value creation. We've never been more optimistic at future. So scaling will be non-linear. We know, but a lot of people don't know.
Doesn't know.
A lot of people don't know, Alexandra.
Well, they honestly, if you invest in Tesla and if you haven't learned that Elon is overly optimistic and often doesn't hold his timelines, then you haven't done your due diligence, because it happens just all the time. Actually, weren't we all surprised when the rollout for FSD Lite actually was on June 30th? We were all like, what?
Ashok, when he says things, it happens pretty well. He's maybe late a few days, but he hits his mark.
Time for FSD Lite, not for the whole world. I know, not the final version. I know, but at least something on June 30th. Yeah.
And he did clarify just a few days ago that the new version of FSD Lite is the one that's going to go wide release now. So he's promising that's all version 3s, hardware 3s will get it.
And Nick is probably good to speak this as well. The momentum stocks in July, I think, not only their worst months, maybe since the great financial crisis, it may be the worst in history, and James as well, James and Nick. And I guess I'm not seeing the winds at our back yet, but it looks like there's some turnaround occurring in that area, albeit rocky. So at least this call wasn't last week versus this week. So that may or may not be helpful. Tesla, does its own thing, but there could be some help there. It looks like most of the rest of the market is flat to up in after hours.
James, what happened to the stock after hours? It's still down, right? 370.
Yeah, it fell about
360.
$8 now. It was down hard, but it's recovering a little bit. But I think the big story right now, a lot of things are happening. When we speak about non-linear and linear, I think part of that is what we began talking about at the beginning is the expectations were so high. They don't understand. I just saw a comment on YouTube there that why are they spending so much on CapEx? Like, first of all, have you ever looked at what Meta, Oracle, Google, Amazon, Microsoft are spending on CapEx? It's like, if you look at what they're spending, it's almost horrifying how little Tesla's spending. First of all, because they're very lean and mean and they're very good with their CapEx. Second of all, to go after the biggest TAMs on earth, self-driving cars, robots, taxi, cybercab fleet that runs globally, and humanoid Optimus robots, you need to pay to play. If you start parsing out your CapEx slowly over time, you'll wake up 5 years later and the Chinese will be in control. These are the big picture things that the retail investors miss. Does anybody want to back me up there? Jeff, in your experience managing new product supply chains, talk to me about the risk you've got to take in deployment of CapEx.
Yeah, you have to, you take that risk in advance, you do it in a measured fashion, but you are spending in advance of a return. Now, what Tesla tends to do a better job of is that gap between the paying that CapEx supplier and money coming in the door from shipping product. And that's what we want to see in the Cybercab. And I think what people should at least take to heart is that the way the Cybercab is constructed and the line rate that they're trying to get to, as long as they are unencumbered from an AI and software perspective, meaning this flips back to as much hardware we can get out is as many that we can light up in the field. We're not there yet. We're right now, we're actually software and regulatory limited. But when that switches back, what it's going to switch back to is the fastest production vehicle, I think, in the world, and certainly the fastest that Tesla has ever produced. And that's going to help them get a great ROI. And of course, what they are able to charge for Robotaxi and that service is going to get them a great ROI, literally near one. And then you've got really good tax benefits with this CapEx as well. And when they turn to assets and how they're treated, there's very good, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, there's very good tax treatment for these. So it is a good setup. It's just we're on the what do you call the roller coaster and kind of ticking up to the top before you get the real acceleration happening. So that's what we want to hear from Tesla is what does that look like? And if you're in that final engineering testing and you're giving rides to employees, what do you call the next milestone and when does it happen?
Exactly. And we're going away from hopefully, soon, the picks and shovels era of this whole AI world, the GPUs and the data centers and the power plays, to the application of all of this infrastructure to build all these self-driving cars and humanoid robots. But I think the key point that investors need to know, and hopefully, and I don't think we'll get clarity from Tesla on this today, is when will that hit? If you threw the retail investor a bone saying, okay, line in the sand, we will have 10,000 cybercabs running around the United States by the end of the year, everybody would be very happy. But this vagueness, like end of last year, half the country will be penetrated by cybercabs. That's once bitten, twice shy, boy who cried wolf, whatever you want to say. That's the problem that the retail investor has right now. We believed it. And now everybody's pissed off. How do we overcome this? Do you think they'll have the balls to say, yes, we'll have 10,000 of these and we'll have version 15 running around and safety will not be an issue, et cetera, et cetera? That's what the retail investors need to know right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the answer to that is it's not going to be what they say. It's going to be what we actually see happening out there. So I think they've got to roll them out. So I think they're going to continue to pull guidance on this, to be honest with you, and they're going to make it a little bit more vague than specific. And I think they're just going to speak with actions in my experience with a safety critical product rollout, you don't light up Tampa and Orlando with 100 cars. You just don't do that. What you do is you put a couple of them into the mix and you make sure everything's working right financially. Everything's working right with communications with the home base. Everything's working right to remote control a vehicle if needed. Like everything's working. And then you just start layering cars in. I think the reason they haven't layered more cars in, like the Houston and Dallas, and we don't know the exact numbers, we just know that they're low. But I think the reason that they've registered cars but haven't physically layered them in, I think they're self-limiting themselves based on the performance of the software and the probability of an incident. And I think they need to give clarity on how is that progressing, because I think if we looked at our FSD release for every 90 days, I think it's getting progressively and meaningfully better. So what does that mean to CyberCab? And then what level of goodness is needed for them to kind of, take the stopper out and let the thing rip? And I think people shouldn't get hung up on V15, or that's just the name that they'll decide to label a release when they decide to label a release that. And there's some components to that. There's no question about it. I think people should be more focused on the what versus the version number.
Yep.
My other theory about that, Jeff, about how they're going to roll out RoboTaxi, I've mentioned it before, right? Let's say that they have 1,000 cars per city. It's going to be more, right? Probably 3,000 or 5,000 eventually. Let's say they're shooting for 1,000 cars. You're going to have 100 Model Ys, 900 Cybercabs, because 90% of the rides are 2 or less. They've not yet ready to roll out Cybercabs. And so you're going to roll out Model Ys, and people are going, why aren't they getting, I want to see 200, I want to see 500 Model Ys in that city. That's not the way it's going to work. They're going to roll it out to 100 Model Ys per city. And then when they introduce Cybercabs, that's the one that they're going to roll out to 900 for each 1,000. That's the way I see it. So they're not rolling out each city. Like, why haven't they got to 1,000 per city already? No, they're waiting for Cybercab, because what is RoboTaxi? RoboTaxi is Cybercab. That is what it is.
Can I push back on that?
Yeah.
If they would just put 100 out there in a city, then they would be having just as good of a service as Waymo does right now.
Yeah, well, but that is what they're doing. How many Model Ys are there now? Didn't they just jump by 75 in the last 24 hours?
Registrations, not actual.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think they're waiting for that. We got 30 minutes to wait.
But that doesn't exactly, wait, hold on. That doesn't answer the question though, right? Because just because they have those registrations, like Jeff said, that doesn't mean they're in use. So you're saying that they're trying to do 100 and then they're going to backfill the rest 900 to get to that 1,000. Why not put the 100 out there then?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the opposite of that, which is you're going to roll out the RoboTaxi service in a city via Cybercab.
Yeah,
so you're not going to jump the Model Ys to 200 or 300 or even 100 now.
Just 100.
Even that you may not, because you're going to wait until the Cybercab is ready. Then you're going to roll everything out.
No, but I do think the critical path on just getting to that 80 or 100 Model Ys is their own internal metrics about either safety critical and or convenience critical interventions that they want to solve. I actually think that is because we know they can make Model Ys. We know that they've deployed them, and they're at least they're in a parking lot. Sorry, not deployed. They're deployed from the factory and they're put in these locations. I believe that they are waiting for a level of performance to kind of pull that cork out and get to that 100. And I agree with you on the Cybercabs. They want way more Cybercabs than Model Y. So I agree on that. And that Lars described to us is like, look, we've got a translation layer to do with engineering. And it sounds like they're getting through it because they're not going to put their own employees, like their own employees are their own employees. They're not guinea pigs. They're not going to put them in something unsafe. So the fact that they're on public roads, not just Giga Texas, they're on public roads with their employees. That tells me the next phase is public launch. Now they just have to give that timeline.
And Jeff and I were at California a month ago or several weeks ago, and we both took Tesla's RoboTaxi service in California, even with a person there. And I was not happy with the pickup and drop-offs. So that is not resolved. Now that is going to be resolved because you've heard that they're saying that this is now the feature that's coming out in the next several releases, the destination parking, and then remembering that every the car can remember, your favorite routes or where you want. Once they can teach the robotaxi that when you're at this hotel, this is where you drive to. In this hotel, you drive here. Once they figure that out, that's the last remaining piece, because we all agree that safety is not the issue anymore, right? All of us are driving our robotaxis. My cars, I consider my robotaxi, right? And it's pretty safe.
I would not be happy if they didn't just answer the question. If they've told us about the engineering work on Cybercab, they told us that it was good enough to give Giga Texas rides, and they've told us it's on public roads. If they should be able to tell us then when they estimate that it will be open for the public to use and to deploy in Texas. And I'm hoping that I hear the word August. And if we don't hear that, then I think that would be inappropriate to not share that. I think they should share that. I think they should share their current working view. And they're saying, look, here are the things that could get in the way of that. But look, we think it's actually really close. We think it's August. And this is why, because we had to do these 2 prior things and they're done.
Yeah, that could be big news. Say questions. Let's go through them. The first one here is, what are the main constraints to expanding robotaxi operations faster? And how do you see that lining up with Cybercab production? What do you guys think of that question?
I like it.
I think
It's fine. If I was writing it, I probably would have said, what are the main constraints to getting the service times to the same or better than Uber? That would be,
This was Fazad's question. Can we just call him out because he was going on how brilliant this question is? Or can we
never
just
mind.
all have
Are you
a
sure?
moment laughing?
this
Of
question
course.
sucks.
He goes on and on and on about it. I saw it this morning, and he's now in the
Oh.
comments saying what a brilliant question this was. So can we please all clap?
Is it
for
really
Fazad?
his?
It
Yeah.
is. Actually.
Okay, then his question went up to number 1. Good. It must be a good question. People liked it.
That's an awful question.
Fazad,
What are the main
Fazad.
constraints?
The only good
How
thing
do you
about Farzad is España, right? That's
Yeah.
right, Farzad.
Yeah, so his theory is that Cybercab production is going to be so much faster and higher. Let's say 100,000, 200,000, a million. And then how's that going to match up with robotaxi rollout by regulation, by city, and so forth? Yeah, he wants to know.
So back to that first question, I agree with Nick. Like, we want to be focused on objective, like you want to understand the KPIs, and when the KPIs get better, I think people should actually try to get out of the mode of counting cars. I know it's the easiest thing to do, even though we have terrible data. We have terrible data, by the way, in terms of like how many cars are actually out there. But knowing what the wait times and knowing when we have this high service demand thing, it should come down to what are the wait times. And if you're an analyst and you're analyzing this space of robotaxi, you should be really focused on in-state KPIs and are they making a business or not just counting cars and like comparing it to some prototype operation. So I hope we get real analysts that do it that way, because if you do it that way, number 1, Tesla's going to look very good. Number 2, that's all that matters. Like, are you building a business or not? By the way, it looks like Google dropped 2 or
$10.
3% pretty recently after hours, and it looks like they increased their CapEx guidance. They were in the 180 billion, now they're at like 190 to 205.
Yay.
If you're in the AI builder space of you're supplying these guys equipment, and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're in this AI doomer space, I don't know what you're smoking, because not only these guys are reiterating CapEx, they're increasing it.
Yep, but and it's all AI infra as well. They're
And
not
it could be those
building
James, it could be
factories
the
or
memory
stuff.
price increases too
yeah,
that are part
yeah,
of that.
exactly.
Man, all my
But when you consider, like, they're spending nearly 9 times what Tesla's spending, but Tesla's going after far larger TAMs, and Google has lost the frontier model game too. So
well, I wouldn't say that. They're delayed. We'll see what they come out with here.
yeah, delayed
Yeah,
when
now
everything
it's
changes
moved.
every 30 days is
Yeah,
Yeah.
big.
you're right. It's
It
gonna
takes
move
a lot to
back and
catch up.
forth.
Yeah.
I would never underestimate Google.
No, they're a machine. They definitely are. But
Every time I've counted them out, man, then they do something. Like Even Waymo, I mean, like, hats off, you know, like,
So the Neo clouds are jumping.
hell
Micron
yeah.
just jumped.
SanDisk, Marvell, Nvidia, pretty much all the trades I have on right now.
You know
Love
how slow I am. I am really. When people say, "Oh my God, she's not moving" or whatever, when I think, I can't move at the same time. So just bear with me. But I was going through this SpaceX investment and all the rest, the impact it had. Had we not invested at the beginning of the year those $2 billion into SpaceX, and oh my gosh, the heat we took, both Amy and me, for having proposed that, and then it's only $2 billion and whatever. EPS, everything else unchanged, just taking out that SpaceX investment, would have been 0.10. Okay, not 0.33 or 32, how we are, but 0.10. That is what saved it. Okay, that is what saved it. But also, it's going to be valued again end of September, right? So this is like the Bitcoin. This goes up and down, and we'll feel this. We'll feel this with the stock price.
Well, it's not an ongoing. I know I agree with it's useful here. It's not going to, I don't know how the market values it as. It's not going to be an ongoing thing, or probably more of a 1 or 2 time hit.
Man.
Okay, so we've got we're waiting for 20 minutes when the live stream will happen.
You know what's funny? This is kind of like a more of a downbeat pre-earnings call than we normally have. I think everyone's like on.
It just takes me time to think this through. Yeah, I can't just talk. I have to do my chapter after chapter, and then I'm there.
No, I know. I see some of the comments on X, and they're like, "Man, we can feel it in the room."
Yeah, it's funny. Even with $9.11, massive EPS beat for Google. Obviously, they have included the gains on SpaceX IPO that got realized, but still down.
Excluded as well.
$10.
Let's see when it's lost whether they will exclude them as well.
They have to, I think, mark to market every quarter.
Yeah, they will, of course.
Yeah.
The same way that they mark to market their Bitcoin position, exactly the same. But what I found funny is when it goes up a lot and helps, then Wall Street excludes it. When it goes down, we never hear about that.
Yeah. Jeff, did the reg credits surprise you at Delta?
No, and I don't know if they're even forecasting it, but I mean, these things are not going away entirely, but they're certainly going to be reduced. And you see Ford and GM like celebrating it kind of in their in their earnings. So it's fine actually. I think that's the current regime we're in. It looks like some of the states though are starting to come up with their own regimes, and it looks like I don't know where they are with fighting this Clean Air Act change, but it looks like the federal government's on pretty decent ground to do what they did. But it's nice to see EV growing globally. I mean, China's pulled back subsidies, the U.S. has pulled back subsidies, Germany, the EU, everybody's kind of pulled back on their net subsidies of EVs, but they're growing. So I think people are realizing these are better cars. That's actually what you want. You don't want you kind of want this to happen more naturally, but it's going to weigh on earnings a bit. The timing is kind of like, okay, if these very high gross margin things are going to fade, and then this very high gross margin robotaxi business is going to ramp, I don't think Tesla could have asked for a little bit of a better transition. Maybe, could you stay on for one more year, reg credits? But it's nice that Tesla has a higher margin business behind it that they're about to ramp up.
Back to the say questions. We got the second one is on Optimus. What's the current status of Optimus Gen 3 production ramp, initial deployment in factories, and external sales timeline volume for 2027? What tasks can we expect the Optimus to perform by the end of 2027?
Yeah,
interesting that it came right in between two robotaxi questions.
Yeah, I think they're going to say like we're targeting to start production this year, but I go back to I think everybody's really hyper focused on the production of Optimus and the reveal of, but the actual gate is going to turn out to be, will generative AI work, and can this bot watch something, learn, and actually do the task in a very relative short period of time? And if it can't, it doesn't matter how much hardware you stack up. And we know Tesla is good at manufacturing. So every company building humanoids has to pass through a filter. They have to have the right product defined. They have to have the ability to engineer AI and have an AI solution. And they have to manufacture. Product, AI, manufacturing. And there's no company that I think ticks all those boxes other than Tesla. And everybody else, you're going to get into a fairly deep argument of like, do they have this experience? So there's no company better positioned, but I think there's just this hyper focus, like, let's start production. But I would be asking Tesla, how far away are we from these things doing useful, meaningful things? Because I'd love production to actually be the gate, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case. And then there's this whole deployment layer that comes after that of, when does this get out of one-to-one person managing these things? And what's the KPI and how many Tesla employees are needed, per bot for a bot to do useful things in the world? Right now it's easily 1-to-1, if not more. So it'd be great for them to talk more about that. I think I love the picture of the subline. I love the picture of the production line. I'm a production manufacturing person, but if you look at it from a product perspective, I actually think the AI portion of it and the deployment piece of it are actually more gating items to scale than can they make a manufacturing line. We know they can make a manufacturing line.
Yeah, my theory on Optimus is that they're producing it, of course. So we've learned the details from Lars about the production lines. It's on its way, and then they've said that they're going to, first, you just saw the earnings deck, that the first Optimus will be used for the university training. So for it to do useful work, I think it's already a given that it can do pick and place. What they're shooting for, as Tesla does, they don't do things like all the other car companies do, right? They're not just trying to show you a demo. They're not just trying to show you one use case. They want to be able to solve generalized use case everywhere, anywhere. So what does that mean? We're not going to see it sold to customers. We're not going to hear it being used in their factories. What we're going to see is university training. One of the things we just learned a few days ago was in the app, there's some code there that says that they're now asking a user to be able to authorize you to let the bot give away its video training, right? So that means that as a user is at home, they've got the bot at their home, they're allowing the bot to upload the video that they have there for training. They're going to need to implement something very similar to what FSD happened, which is, and I've been saying for a while now, I strongly believe Elon and Tesla will launch some sort of glasses, some sort of AI device. That is a given. Even though you hear him say no iPhones, sure, it's not an iPhone, it's an AI device. They're going to give away those glasses so that we all are going to use it and authorize whatever we're watching, as I'm washing my dishes, as I'm, folding my clothes and so forth, that I'm going to give that data to Tesla so they can use it for training. So all of this is going to be training. Everybody's going to say nothing's happening at Tesla. They're not achieving. Look at all these other bot companies. They're able to do this task, that task. Then Tesla comes out and is able to do any task and every task at high precision, high perfection. That's what they plan to do. That's my theory. And I think that it's going to be a lot longer than people realize in terms of, I want to be sold and I want to see it in the factory tomorrow. Yeah, they'll do that. I'm not saying they won't be in a factory doing pick and place. That's not their plan A.
It's not a big thing for this year's earnings is the bottom line, but we want to see it continue to make progress. We want to see that the product that they demo is truly differentiated and they're not chasing somebody else that's out there. I think that's what we want to see on Optimus. But, this year, like the movement, are we going to get a hockey stick in margins and in revenue? Is can we get, thousands and thousands of these cybercabs out there? I think that's what the call is going to center
So I missed a lot of your discussions. I know you've already talked about this, so I missed all of it. But basically, this question: Tesla's missed short-term guidance on robotaxi 3 earnings reports in a row, from 50% coverage of USA by in 2025 to most recently 7 new cities in first half. What is keeping Tesla back from accomplishing these short-term goals that they've set for themselves? How did you guys feel about that question?
You're
I
a
loved it.
shareholder. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're a
I think it's
shareholder.
fair.
Yeah. I mean, look, we can parse the earnings statements and what was said, and there's qualifiers around regulatory, and that's fine. I think it's appropriate to say that too. But if you're a shareholder, you kind of had an understanding that there would be more than, dozens of these things out there. And we have to, again, separate the registrations from the ones actually giving rides. And you just want to know, as a shareholder, I think what you want to know is you want to know more of the root cause and less of it like we're working hard or we're only focused on safety. Like that's a given. We know that. That's not the answer. The answer is it. I would love it in the form of some sort of KPI, but I don't know if we're going to get that on the call. But you want to know what delayed you and have you resolve the issue, or what's the timeline to resolve the actual issues. You don't want them belaboring on, did you say this, or did you really say that, or did you mean this, or did you really mean that? You want to kind of step back and look at it from a 10,000 foot view. And my question would be are you meeting your own deployment timeline for robotaxi as you described it internal to the company? And if not, what are those driving issues, and when you think you're going to be beyond those? And then do you have a new projection for us? I think if you have the conversation that way, and like, do you have a new projection based on what you know now? Do you know more now than you did 6 months ago? I think you can get a real answer. But if you just kind of go in and you're like cutting them down, well, I think they're going to pull guidance, and that's what they did in the last quarter. So I think it's totally appropriate for shareholders to ask questions about, what the company promised or set as goals or milestones.
Yeah, I'll just say the only problem I have with the question is that I don't think we should have to ask that question. That question should be answered in the opening statements. They should be answering this. They should be transparent. They should lead from front. They know this is what's on everyone's mind. Elon's on X. He sees everything on X. He sees what everyone's saying. He's not oblivious to it. They should be direct and just answer the question. I think it's if shareholders have to ask questions like that, then I think that's a little bit of a problem. Leadership should lead, and they should lead based on the KPIs they gave us. We didn't make those KPIs up. They came up with those metrics. And so if they're going to be transparent enough to give guidelines and goals or whatever semantics we want to put out there, they should just lead from the front and just tell us what's going on. Again, like Alexandra said earlier, just rip the Band-Aid off. This is causing more issue for the stock, for the community and all that than just ripping the Band-Aid off. Like, if there's an issue, tell us the issue is. If you're waiting for version 15, say that. If you're waiting for XYZ, tell us that. But just rip that Band-Aid off. Just be transparent.
I was going to say, this is a huge discussion that's happening on X, right? There's a split between retail community, people saying Elon's a liar, all the way to, you shouldn't even be able to ask these questions, right? But it's a nuanced answer. One thing I wanted to point out is that there's a difference between when Elon says something versus what's something that either Ashok or is written in the actual earnings deck and previous earnings deck. When Elon says something, he will say stuff like, we expect the robotaxi to be at 50% of the population, but then he will say there's caveats all over the place, depending on regulation, depending on if we hit our targets. But people ignore those caveats he makes. That's one thing when he says it. That's one thing when he says that. Okay, that's one thing.
You can't. He has to be right.
And there's no regulation caveats right now.
Let me just
come back.
Let me come back to this.
No caveats.
Let me come back to this. Okay, so there's one thing when Elon says something. There's another thing when in the earnings deck they say we've got 7 cities. We're going to hope for hit 7 cities by the first half. Not hope, like this is our plan. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is the plan by first half. If that's not hit, which it's not, because it's already well into July, heading into August, and they just did 2 and 3, that is something they need to explain. They need to explain that badly. I just want investors out there who are watching what's going on, and they're like going, I don't trust management anymore. Well, there's
It's not
caveats when
that.
Elon says something, and these things are wrong. They miss them, but they have to explain these ones clearly because they were true guidance. This
So
is true guidance.
you were right. And I wrote an article yesterday really clipping exactly what he said. Now, again, people love to cherry pick half a phrase where he said half of the United States, and they run with that, right? If you see, I just, please, let's all do our due diligence. Read the whole thing. You see how he stumbled there. This is the goal. I always remember, I love the interviews with Lars because he just resonates with me because the way he thinks, and I mean, you've experienced it in life, you can count on what he said. Well, not on the Tuesday, but all the rest. So all that to say, he explained how the Cybertruck idea, initial,
Cybercab.
plan finally materialized. He gave them 6 months as a goal. Whenever you hear Elon saying goal, you know this is a soft goal, but not in the way that you think. Not in the way that you think, okay, now we've got 6 months, it's all good, it's a soft goal. He came back a couple of weeks later, all they had done was talk and nothing was really done yet. And he reduced those 6 months to 3 months. That's how he functions. Now, do I find that funny or do I find that great as a shareholder? Of course. Would I find it funny as an employee who has now to execute? No. So when he says we have this goal of achieving half of America by year end, this is very aspirational. And I'm not saying he doesn't believe it in that moment, but I think we all know that there is no way they get there. Would we love them to get there? Yes. Do I buy options on that point? No, I don't. So there is really a learning curve of what you can take from him and also how you have to read every single word of it. That doesn't make him a liar. When I hear people saying now for days and weeks, Elon is a liar, no, he's not. He is overly optimistic on timing. He is not a great communicator. I wish it would be clearer. I wish we would have a CFO that we hear clearer as well. So, and I've expressed that. So all the people telling me all the time, oh, you're just cheerleading. No, I'm not. Whenever I don't like anything, I say it very clearly as well. But it is clear that communication is not Tesla's forte. And Elon by himself cannot be taken at the letter, but that does not make him a liar. I really would like for people to differentiate between being overly optimistic, being very enthusiastic and motivating his teams, and what you really can read out of it, because you have to be very prudent with what he says to read the whole context.
Can I interject? So, and I agree with, first off, he's not a liar. He is probably the greatest visionary in tech and the greatest capital allocator, and there's data that actually supports that. But on an earnings call, there has to be a method of communication and there has to be clarity around things. And it can't be like, well, here's the stretch goals I'm putting on my team, and everybody else, you kind of make of it what you think. I'm typically late or whatever. And he's starting to say more of that. I think it's got to be, I think there's a communication problem, and they got to get a little bit better at how they do that. They got to get a lot better at how they do that. And given the importance and given the how much of the multiple is riding on this, they actually should come out and they should propose the metrics, and they should be more kind of out front with how's this deployment going. And by the way, they could preface it with the following: this will be the fastest and steepest rollout of robotaxi in the history of robotaxis, like in the history of the world. Like they could say that, and that's probably going to end up being a true statement. And then once you preface that, now get into here's what we wanted to achieve, and here's where we're actually at. I think there's room for improvement. In they're not lying; they're trying to do their best.
Granted, there's a lot of room for improvement. Granted, I give you that.
Yeah, and in fact, regarding the half the population, what I did was I looked at all of the places where they're hiring for Cybercab robotaxi supervisors. It's 32 cities, 32 test markets, or 33, I can't remember. When you add up the population of those test markets, it's exactly 175 million, which is exactly half the population of the United States. So those, like if you take cities like Flushing Meadows and and
Yeah.
Dallas
It'll
and
be late.
Houston. Yeah.
Can I play this and tell me if you guys can hear the audio?
Sure, go ahead.
Can you guys hear the audio?
No.
Okay, let me restart that,
So-
and then
Well, while you figure that out, can I just just be very clear? This is why so many people are frustrated. And I agree. Elon's not a liar. Okay, put a pin in that. Okay, let's get past that. But people are frustrated because it seems like every time Elon does something or says something that we should all hold him accountable to as the CEO of the company, who gets a lot of grace because of who he is and who he's accomplished, it's like everyone explains away things he did that he should be held to account for. He should be held accountable. He's not just the half of the US. He also talked about we're going to be doubling every so frequently or whatever. He's the one that talked about, yes, we're still on track for in the next 90 days to go to all these cities. And to sit there and do a performative, maybe you say it's not performative, but these 3 cities where I went down to Miami, took over an hour and a half just to get one robo-taxi, and it was almost impossible. And you had to go pick up in front of someone's house randomly. It feels performative. We look at last quarter, Dallas and Houston, nothing's happened there. So it feels performative. It doesn't actually feel like you launched the thing you said you were going to launch. So I think people have a right to be frustrated and say, hey, we want to hold you accountable. You got to tell us more. We need more of explanation. You said this. You said you were going to deliver this. Yeah, okay, I guess maybe if we squint our eyes, you kind of did, but it kind of feels like you tricked us a little bit. Let us in a little more on what's going on.
Nick, you're spot on. You're spot on. What
did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Nick is spot on.
No.
Yes, I heard that.
Did you hear the music?
No, we did not hear the music. I said Nick is spot on. But I also wanted to be respectful, because what really happened this week was an avalanche of people calling Elon a liar, it's not a...
Yeah,
it's not
he can take it though. He also trumped whatever.
You can be very well in that moment believe that, and yet it doesn't fulfill. Does that not mean you have to explain at one point why it didn't fulfill? Correct. Yes, you have to explain it. But by starting to call somebody upfront a liar, you don't get anywhere. And I just
you're 100% right. But he opens himself up with the way he communicates and he criticizes other people. He makes it like, hey, we can be a little more casual. Like, we don't have to, I'm just saying, like, he does open up the aperture to be able to talk a little more like, hey, we're friends and we can just be legit with each other. Like, hey, like, this kind of BS. Like, what are you going? Like, are you lying to me? What's going on? He opens up. It's not like we're sitting there talking to Tim Cook, where he's never opened up the ability to have that type of dialogue with them.
You heard it?
Yep.
Okay.
I think we did hear
but now we're
something.
getting into a mode now where they pulled the guidance in the April quarter, and we don't want to be there either. We got good information publicly from Lars in terms of what's driving the Cybercab launch schedule, this engineering translation work to get self-driving calibrated and approved on that vehicle from an engineering perspective. Now they're giving people rides. So I think you can ask and challenge when the company puts out objectives. And I don't think we want to get to the point where it's so like where they just pull the guidance. We need this guidance because it's what the multiple other companies actually
they can't pull the guidance.
Well, they did in the last quarter. Essentially, there was no new guidance on robotaxi, I believe, in the April piece. So I think they heard loud and clear, like, hey, you said this thing was doubling every month in January, and look what we got. And again, I think there's another thing going on too. I don't think the couple of cars in each city is actually performative. I just think it's the stage that they're at. I actually think we want to get to the root of the issue. Why is it limited to the 2 cars? Is there something going on in software from a safety or convenience perspective? And what is that? And when do you expect to resolve it? I think we want to get past that. So I don't think it's performative. I don't think he's lying, but the communication could be a whole heck of a lot better, and it should be for a company of this size.
100% agree, Jeff. But it appears performative. And when something appears a certain way...
Twitter 2026 Q&A webcast.
Yeah.
My name is Travis Axelrod, Head of
luck,
Investor
everybody.
Relations, and I'm joined today by Elon Musk, Vaibhav Taneja, and a number of other executives. Our Q2 results were announced at about 3 p.m. Central Time in the update deck we published at the same link as this webcast. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC. During the question and answer portion of today's call, please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. Please use the raise hand button to join the question queue. Before we jump into Q&A, Elon has some opening remarks. Elon?
Thank you. So, yeah, it's been a great quarter. We achieved record Q2 deliveries. Model Y, I believe, is now, I think it's the best-selling car of any kind in the world, and is setting records across the board. So its popularity is increasing tremendously. And we're seeing in locations that have FSD approved, we're seeing a very high take rate of FSD. And in fact, I think for a lot of people, they're actually buying Tesla Full Self-Driving with a car attached, as opposed to a car with FSD. They're coming into our stores in the US and saying they want the Full Self-Driving, and with whatever car it comes with, essentially. So clearly, this is a significant demand driver, and as we get approval for FSD in different countries, I think we'll see a similar uptick in demand. Yeah, it's looking very good on that front. The energy business is also growing incredibly fast, and I think will be crucial for the scale up of artificial intelligence data centers. We're investing a lot in growing the core business and really preparing for the future. So this is a massive CapEx year, but I'm confident that all the things that we're investing in will yield incredible returns. Really, maybe the best CapEx returns that we've ever seen. And just the Tesla team has performed incredibly well. The Cybercab has started production, and we also have started production and are ramping in. We will soon start production with Optimus. We have started production with the Tesla semi-truck. We will soon start production with Megapack 3. We've started production with the lithium refinery, the cathode refinery. We're scaling up battery cell production, and we're also preparing to do a massive solar panel, like solar cells and panel production. Actually, this is going all the way from silicon refinement to producing the solar cell, and then deployment of solar, because there's going to be tremendous need for electricity in the future due to electrification of transport and AI, obviously. So we're working on what we believe is the most ambitious build-out of advanced infrastructure and manufacturing capacity ever in history. It's a big deal. So with Robotaxi, our goals are very ambitious for Robotaxi, but we do need to be cautious about causing any accidents or causing any harm to anyone. Although there are, I think, 30 to 40,000 automotive deaths per year in the United States alone, most of those do not generate any press on it. You never really read about almost any of those. But if we injure even one person, it will be worldwide headline news. And regulators will immediately clamp down on our activities. And we don't want to injure anyone. So we're going as fast as humanly possible in scaling Robotaxi, but while trying to ensure that we do not harm anyone at all, and ideally do not even run over a pet. So that's really the constraint. Is we want to grow as fast as possible with Robotaxi without harm to anyone. And we're providing live updates for Robotaxi launch as we open up in a city. We immediately post that on X. So if you just follow the Tesla account on X, we'll keep you informed as we scale to new cities. We've opened up in a number of cities in Florida and in Texas, and obviously in the Bay Area. So we'll continue to scale, I think, very very rapidly with you know, it looks like more than 10% a week in terms of miles driven. So it's a very high compound growth rate. So let's see, Optimus. As you've heard me say before, I think Optimus will be the biggest product ever, but it is a very complex problem to solve. It's one of the hardest things to solve, to make an autonomous humanoid robot that can do tasks that if you simply ask it to do something or show it a video, it can do the task without any programming. Like no one's ever achieved this. And there are many challenges in the electromechanical design of the robot to achieve sufficient dexterity and also be very reliable and have a long wear and tear. Like meaning it needs to be out in the field and not break down. Otherwise, you've got sort of a 70-kilogram robot that just flopped over, and you got to carry it out like a body. You know, it doesn't have wheels. So, and we don't want Optimus to go haywire. It's a lot of work to scale to get the design right and to scale production. And I really want to emphasize here that the production scaling challenge is a very substantial. This is going to be the hardest product to scale manufacturing that we've ever made at Tesla, because everything on the robot is new, and the difficulty of scaling the production ramp is proportionate to the newness of the parts in the robot. And at least with electric cars, the non-electric powertrain portions of the cars had an existing supply chain, so you could go to existing suppliers for wheels and side mirrors and windshield glass and that kind of thing, body panels. But with Optimus, there is no supply chain, so we've had to build up a supply chain in its entirety, or in-house the production, and we've in-housed a tremendous amount. The Optimus production line that we're building out in Fremont, in place of what used to be the Model SX production, it looks incredible. I mean, it's quite stunning to see. So I just want to make sure to calibrate people correctly. Optimus will follow the sort of normal S curve of manufacturing of a manufacturing ramp, but the initial portion of the S curve will be quite flat and long because of the newness of the parts in the robot. You've probably seen lots of impressive demonstrations of robots on the internet, but those demonstrations you're seeing are pre-programmed or remote controlled. So there is no humanoid robot that is actually able to do generalized tasks. Optimus will be the first one that is capable of doing that, where it's not just a demo; it's genuinely useful in day-to-day life. So, and Optimus is designed to have full human dexterity, so a hand that has the same level of dexterity, if not higher, than a human hand. And the human hand is an incredible thing. The more you study the human hand, the more amazing you realize how amazing hands are. It's more than just opposable thumbs. I mean, the nuances of how human hands work are amazing. As the closer you look, the more amazed you are. And Optimus will have that capability. You'll have human and then superhuman dexterity. So it's really going to be quite something. Let's see, Terafab. The Terafab, we expect to announce the location soon, and provide more details about our plans in that regard, which we'll leave that to the product, sort of the launch announcement, rather than try to squeeze it into an earnings call, because I think this is a very big announcement, and it deserves to have its own sort of stay in the spotlight and not be sort of squeezed into an earnings call. But I do think TerraFab is going to be an amazing initiative and a necessary one, and one without which we will be constrained in our ability to scale Optimus production, because we simply won't have enough AI chips. So it's crucial to solve that, and we'll have to solve memory, logic, and packaging in order to scale Optimus. But anyway, like I said, we'll leave that to its own announcement. We've placed equipment orders for our development fab in Austin, and that development fab I think is pretty cool because it's intended to have lithography mask production, and then logic, memory, and packaging and chip testing all under one roof. So you can have a very fast iterative cycle, and try out new chip designs very quickly and see if they work. I don't think such a building exists anywhere on Earth. So this is really going to be super helpful as we try some exciting, adventurous, high risk, high payoff bets on AI chips. But it focused, like I said, on primarily on Optimus. Like, how do we make Optimus as useful as possible? Then we have Digital Optimus, which is basically just driving a computer screen. I guess you could call it computer use or something like that. But driving a computer screen in the same way that you drive a car. So for the car, it's sort of pixels in or photons in and controls out. The same thing is true for Optimus and Digital Optimus. It's photons in, controls out. So we feel confident we can adapt the same Tesla AI technology that we developed for self-driving cars to have a self-driving computer screen, or self-driving computer, essentially. So the self-driving computer, where the Tesla, the very, very low cost Tesla AI4 computer can handle all of the sort of short-term tasks. They're doing real-time video control of the screen of the computer. So it's not like screenshots type of thing. It's real-time video at high frame rate. And Digital Optimus will be important, obviously, for Physical Optimus, because Physical Optimus needs to be able to operate computers. It can't come up to a touchscreen and not know what to do. It's got to have a generalized touchscreen and computer use capability. So that's looking promising. And this is in partnership with SpaceX's Grok, sort of the big model that is kind of like the manager of Digital Optimus, and kind of tells Digital Optimus what to do, provides it with a series of tasks, and then Digital Optimus goes and does those tasks. We're also building out a Megapod design that has Tesla AI4 computers with x86. It's a pairing an x86 computer with the Tesla AI4 computer in a box. And it's kind of just Digital Optimus in a box. And in a Megapod, kind of like the Megapack packaging. And so where we put just a large number of AI4 plus x86 combos in a giant box, essentially. And that these boxes can be placed anywhere in the country or outside the country. And this allows us to scale AI compute using disaggregated electricity production. So because there's lots of places all around the world, including at our superchargers. I think we've got something like 7 gigawatts of power at our superchargers and growing. And we can place megapods at many of these superchargers and have distributed power for AI. So I think that could be quite a big deal. So in conclusion, we're super excited about our autonomy and robotics roadmap. There's so much awesome stuff coming. It's like I said, hard to squeeze into an earnings call. But we'll have a lot of product announcements. And this is going to be a great year for Tesla. I think one of our best years ever. And then I think next year will be even better. So in conclusion, I want to thank the Tesla team for their excellent execution and all of our supporters for joining us in this journey. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Elon. And now Vaibhav has some opening remarks.
Thanks, Travis. So Q2 continued the trend that we saw at the end of Q1, a resurgence in demand for vehicles across the globe. We achieved record Q2 deliveries globally with sequential growth across the Americas, APAC, and EMEA of 60%, 27%, and 12% respectively. Additionally, Model Y set records in several key markets, including the Netherlands, Australia, and New Zealand. The efforts of the Tesla team to create compelling products at a reasonable price with the capability of autonomous driving are coming to fruition. We exited Q2 with our largest order backlog since 2023. We are therefore focused on increasing production at all our factories to meet this growing demand. Production growth will be limited by our supply chain. This includes not just batteries, but also electronic components. We've been here before, and like always, our Tesla team is working actively to unblock the obstacles ahead by securing strategic deals with suppliers. Like Elon mentioned, one of the key factors for vehicle demand has been FSD. Our sales data suggests one of the main reasons customers are coming and looking at the car is because of FSD. In Q2, we had in North America, about 55% of our deliveries had FSD subscription at the time of delivery enabled. Overall, FSD attach rates continue to improve, reaching nearly 1.5 million paid customers globally, of which 55% is upfront purchases and the remaining 45% is subscriptions. We expect that the bulk of the growth in FSD monetization will come from subscriptions as we've removed the purchase option in most markets. Automotive margins, excluding regulatory credits, declined sequentially from 19.2% to 16.3%. As a reminder, we had highlighted in Q1 that we had a $230 million benefit from warranty true-downs and some tariff relief, which did not repeat in Q2. Controlling for the impact of those benefits from the prior quarter, our automotive gross margins, excluding credits, would have been approximately flat. This demonstrates the effective pricing and cost management done by the Tesla team as we continue to drive demand. Commodity price increases and interest rate changes all continue to add to our costs. Note that interest rate subvention costs are recognized upfront as revenue offset. So as interest rates have risen this year, the cost of subvention has risen along with them, which had a negative impact on automotive margins. As we have previously noted, energy business is inherently lumpy. Deployments are tied to customer timelines and largely out of our control. In Q2, we deployed 13.5 gigawatt hour of energy storage, a 53% sequential increase, and the second largest quarter for energy business. Despite this growth, energy gross margins declined from 39.5% to 20.4%. This margin decline was a result of several dynamics. First, there was a warranty true-up in the quarter of about $240 million related to certain vendor cell issues for our legacy deployments. Also, the tariff benefits we recognized in Q1 of more than $200 million did not repeat. And lastly, we had previously guided that ASPs for industrial storage is coming down amidst growing competition. Long term, we believe the energy business should normalize at a gross margin rate in the mid to low 20% range. Our order backlog of this business is robust, and we are doing our best to build based on both existing demand and future demand we expect from data center growth and overall electrification of the economy. Service and other margins improved sequentially from 9.2% to 14.1%, an all-time high. This was mainly driven by an uptick in volume and better cost management of our vehicle fleet that supports businesses such as used car, supercharging, service centers, and insurance. While marginal today, also included in this business are deliberate investments we are making in infrastructure that will help scale robotaxi in the future. We continue to grow the Tesla robotaxi fleet and have expanded to a total of 7 markets in the US. We expect the ramp of the fleet to accelerate throughout the year, along with expansion into new US markets. As previously guided, operating expenses increased sequentially. The increase came primarily from significant research and development related activities, including pre-production ramp costs for new products like the semi-truck, Optimus, Cybercab, and other AI initiatives, as well as depreciation for an additional compute that we brought online. Additionally, we had charges related to litigation expenses in the quarter. Note that we are in a big investment cycle and expect our operating expenses, largely driven by R&D, to continue to grow in 2026 and beyond. Net income was positively impacted by a mark-to-market gain of $1 billion on our SpaceX holdings, which was offset by losses on FX of approximately $300 million and on Bitcoin of about $100 million. As previously guided, our free cash flow ended up being negative for the quarter. Most of the reason for it going negative is because CapEx more than doubled sequentially, and we expect it to increase further in the second half of 2026. We continue to expect that CapEx for this year will be more than $25 billion. CapEx will grow for the next 2 or 3 years as we expand our robotaxi fleet, expand our production capacity for Optimus, make investments for semiconductor fab, install solar manufacturing capacity, and AI compute infrastructure, in addition to all the other expansions we'll do for other manufacturing for automotive. In addition to using our cash for such investments, we are being opportunistic in securing certain debt facilities that will give us the capacity to borrow up to $30 billion to help accelerate such investments. We believe this is the right strategy to position the company for the next era, and we'll always make such investments in a very capital-efficient manner. The path to amazing abundance is ever challenging and requires making bold bets. Our progress will be non-linear. The future is going to be great, and we are ready to rise to the occasion. I would like to end by thanking the Tesla team, our customers, investors, and suppliers for their confidence in us on this journey.
Thanks so much, Vaibhav. As everyone on the call may have noticed, we've covered several of the Say.com questions already in opening remarks, including Optimus production, Terafab, and Digital Optimus. Ashok is joining us today, our VP of AI, and he's going to cover questions related to robotaxi. Ashok?
Thank you, Travis. Many of the questions on Say.com relate to robotaxi deployment and scaling, so we thought we'd provide a comprehensive view of where we are now and where we are going in the future. First of all, I'd like to state that the robotaxi program has been operating extremely well. Especially in terms of safety, the program has had an impeccable safety record. We have driven more than 380,000 miles of unsupervised robotaxi, now across 6 cities in 2 different states. We have had 0 notable incidents. Any reports have been of other actors impacting us when we were stationary. Again, I like to emphasize how safe the operation has been so far. 0 notable incidents over 380,000 miles. Historically, the so-called experts have always claimed that you need LiDARs, radars, HD maps, and the entire kitchen sink to drive safely. Here we show that such is not true. You can have safe, comfortable, and affordable autonomy with just cameras. This record should be a huge validation of Tesla's entire AI approach. Second, I'd like to discuss scaling. We started the robotaxi program roughly a year ago in Austin. We had safety monitors in the passenger seats of the cars back then. Around the end of last year, we had the first fully unsupervised robotaxis in Austin. Since the beginning of this year, we have grown at double-digit growth rates to the number of unsupervised miles that the fleet drives every week. I repeat, we have grown at such a high compounding rate on a week-over-week basis over the last several months. Not only that, we expect to continue growing at such a large rate through the rest of this year. The other thing to note is that for expanding to new cities, it has been relatively less effort on our front. We expect that the time to launch to a new city will continue to trend towards zero, towards an end where we operate in entire states as a whole instead of going by city by city. Such growth was only possible because we have a world-class engineering team on the frontier AI development here at Tesla. The currently operating robotaxi fleet is already running early versions of the V15 FSD software that we had referred to in the past. For V15, we had planned roughly about 7 major improvement tracks, and they're all happening in parallel. The early V15 builds that are running on robotaxi have already 40% of those tracks merged together, and that's what's running in the fleet right now. As we continue to complete our work on V15, we will see that the car is going to be ridiculously safe and capable. We're already seeing internal signs that all of these bets that we have made for technology improvements are all continuing to starting to work, and we expect that the payoff will be huge, and that's what is going to help us sustain the same growth rate through the rest of this year and so on. Finally, regarding the Cybercab, first of all, it's a phenomenal product. Anyone who rides in it instantly falls in love with the experience. We have aligned our manufacturing targets to roughly match the projected growth rate of the unsupervised miles. The same V15 models that power the Model Y and other platforms will also work on Cybercabs. In conclusion, robotaxi growth so far has been literally exponential while keeping an impeccable safety record. Our technology bets are paying off, helping us sustain the exponential growth for the foreseeable future, and the Cybercab is going to be awesome.
That's great. Thanks so much, Ashok. And there was one remaining question on data collection for Optimus training. Would you mind covering that as well?
Yep, definitely. Regarding Optimus, especially Gen 3, Optimus has been designed to not just match the appearance of human beings, but also the functionality and dexterity of humans. One of the main reasons for this approach is that having the human form factor and function allows us to learn from humans on how to perform a wide variety of tasks. This opens up the entire world to provide data for training Optimus. Just like FSD, we have access to a broad fleet of humans giving us data from all of the workers at our factory. Optimus can learn quite a bit from observing them perform their tasks at the factories. We also have a dedicated data collection team who can provide a relatively small amount, but of very high quality demonstrations to do the post-training of these models. This is all on top of any training we can do off of the entire internet of data that shows demonstrations of people doing various tasks, both in industrial settings and home settings. The second flywheel is when we have a large number of Optimus robots practicing their tasks in what we call the Optimus Academy. The data from the bots experiencing the tasks themselves will be invaluable and help us close any minor form factor gaps that may exist between the bot and the humans. This is also when the reinforcement learning loop kicks in, where the bot initially attempts some tasks, fails sometimes, learns from both the successes and failures of those tasks, and eventually learns to master those tasks at perhaps a superhuman level. Our AI strategy for Optimus is aligned with the same. It's the same end-to-end strategy that drives FSD, pixels in, controls out. And just like FSD, we expect it to work broadly. In FSD, you can get in the car, type in an address, and then hit start, and then it's like handles all of driving from park to park. And the same thing is going to be true for Optimus as well. You're going to just ask it to do anything, and then it should just perform the entire task on its own without you having to do anything along the way. And it's the same team that produced the FSD, the V12, 13, 14, and now V15 software that now works on Optimus as well. Hence, I'm very confident that Optimus will be an extremely capable robot.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashok. So that covers the say.com questions. Now we will move over to analyst questions. The first question comes from Tom from RBC. Tom, please feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready. Tom, you're still on mute, so please unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. All right, we're not getting any audio from Tom at the moment, so we will try to move on to Andrew, and we'll add Tom back to the queue to come in next. Andrew, as soon as you can, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the question. So maybe just to start out on Optimus, Elon, you mentioned that there's really no supply chain today for Optimus, so you've had to mostly insource a lot of that yourself. I'm just curious, as you've gone through this exercise, are you seeing any suppliers willing to invest alongside you to set up domestic manufacturing to potentially help you scale more quickly in the U.S.? Asking that in the context of obviously, you want to control your own destiny to some extent and ramp as quickly as possible, but from an investment cycle standpoint, potentially more capital efficient to have some partners, help you along the way. So I'm just curious how you're thinking about that and some of the dialogue you've had with potentially some external suppliers.
Elon, you may be on mute right now. We can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, our suppliers have been great, and they have made and are making tremendous investments in support of Optimus and Robotaxi and whatnot. Samsung and TSMC in particular are building fabs. TSMC in Arizona and Samsung in Texas, and putting in tens of billions of dollars to build AI compute for Optimus and Robotaxi. Panasonic has also invested many billions in increasing battery cell production. I'm a little under the weather here. I'm a bit ill, so I sound a little off. I'm kind of struggling with I'm a little bit ill today. So yeah, but our partners have been great, and I'd like to thank them for their support and their investment and their hard work.
Great,
Go ahead,
thanks for that. And maybe just as a
So,
follow-up.
sorry, Andrew, we're going to have Karn hop in here for additional color briefly.
Yeah, just to add to Elon's point, that the Samsung fab, that's going to be pretty significantly dedicated to future projects. That's a massive investment, multi-billion-dollar. We're seeing the same level of investment going to memory, and also new specific parts like metal injection molded parts, flexible printed circuits, and all sorts of novel new technologies that are more based for the robot as opposed to the traditional vehicle supply chain we've had. And in certain cases where we don't find a great partner, we've never hesitated from insourcing it. And we have a very capable manufacturing engineering team and a design team that helps us scale those things.
Yeah, and actually, I'd also like to thank Micron for giving us a memory allocation. They've got to make some very tough decisions on memory allocation, and we really appreciate Micron making room for Tesla in the years to come, and giving us actually a very significant allocation on reasonable terms, given the pretty insane pricing of memory these days.
Great, really appreciate that color. And maybe just my follow-up on robotaxis. You guys gave a lot of great information in your prepared remarks, but there seems to be some evolving regulations at the state level, potentially around sensor requirements. So I'm just curious, as you think about your own rollout, what do you want to see, or what do you need to see from regulators to make sure that, obviously some regulation might be good, but you don't want it to be over-regulated. So what are you expecting to see? What do you want to see to make sure that this is, done in a proper way?
And we've got Lars on the line. Lars, if you wouldn't mind covering this one, if you can.
Yeah, sure, Travis. I think, we talk about regulation, particularly in the US, we've made a lot of headway Just good initiatives from the federal government in terms of the FMVSS rules, moving towards, acceptance and adoption of purely built AVs. And I really appreciate the support from NHTSA on that. When it comes to like a state to state level, obviously the stuff in New Jersey, is a little bit disheartening. I think ultimately, as Ashok said in his opening remarks, we really focus on the performance of the vehicle, and ultimately that's what's going to drive regulators and the public to adopt it. I think the best regulations are those that provide companies and innovators with a goal or a task and allow us to figure out the solution. And when we see regulations that provide a solution before identifying the problem, we really don't, appreciate those. But as Tesla always has and will continue to do, we'll let our performance speak for itself. And I think Ashok laid that out really clearly, and that'll be the foundation of our expansion moving forward.
Great. Thanks for the questions.
Thanks so much. We're going to try Tom again from RBC. Tom, can you unmute and try to speak, please? Unfortunately, Tom, we see you unmuted, but we're not hearing you. So we're going to have to send you back into the queue. Next is Alex from Bank of America. Alex, as soon as you can, please unmute yourself.
Hey, thanks for the questions here. Just a few follow-ups on Robotaxi, actually. I guess, what milestones should investors be watching from here that would cause you to accelerate your fleet scaling or market deployments? Is it the further safety validation, like a miles driven per incident, or something else? And then, would you ever consider third-party distribution partnerships, such as with rideshare providers, to increase utilization, or is the plan for now to keep Robotaxi fully vertically integrated? Thanks.
Yeah, we expect to be vertically integrated with Robotaxi as we are in the rest of our business. So I don't think we're going to have any demand challenges with Robotaxi. So this is the economics will be so compelling that I think we will really have a lot more desire to use the service than I think demand will outstrip our ability to service the demand. And so obviously there's no you can just go vertical in that situation. So it's really just about going through and what we call the march of nines of reliability, where you need like how many nines of reliability do you need to scale? Ideally you want 99.99999% reliable. And so it's just the march of nines of reliability is I think the only thing really constraining our growth in Robotaxi.
Great. Thanks, Elon. The next question is going to come from Colin at Wells Fargo. Colin, please unmute yourself when you're ready.
Oh, great. Thanks for taking my questions. There's been a lot of chatter about SpaceX and Tesla combining in some way. A lot of collaboration already today. Elon, do you see synergies eventually from combining the companies? Does that make sense from your perspective over time?
Well, as you can tell from all the many collaborations on so many fronts with SpaceX, and there's more and more overlap, especially with Terafab. That's really going to be a gigantic project. So, but obviously we can't talk about combining companies and that kind of thing on an earnings call. It's got to be done with the appropriate process. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brandon, our General Counsel.
Yeah, thanks, Elon. And that's exactly right. We continue to benefit from our relationship with SpaceX, and they've been a great partner, and we have numerous beneficial transactions with them. And earlier this year, we deepened our relationship through an investment and a framework agreement. And this will allow us to continue to work with them on projects that Elon mentioned, like Terafab and Digital Optimus.
Yeah, and there's many other things too. Obviously, you've got Grok in the car, and Grok helping Drive Digital Optimus. You've also got Starlink being integrated into the Cybercab, and Starlink will be integrated into all of our vehicles, at least for markets that Starlink is active. Because for a robotaxi situation, you need to have coverage everywhere, and there are many places, even in Silicon Valley, where the cellular coverage is a terrible or sometimes non-existent, which is surprising for Silicon Valley. But I know when I drive to work, those first 10-15 minutes, I can't actually do any calls because the cellular connectivity is so bad. So we can't have robotaxis getting stuck in these like Bermuda triangles of lack of cellular connectivity. So Starlink, with its ability to do connectivity anywhere, is actually quite important. So we don't have robotaxis missing in action. And then obviously if people are sitting in the car, they're going to want to do high productivity stuff or what entertainment. And with Starlink, you can watch 4K live sports in the car, and with very low cost per gigabyte of data. As that's really not feasible via the cellular system. And there's many other situations.
Yeah, I mean, I would say think of it like Ashok was mentioning about Cybercab, right? That the experience is great. In a world when you don't have to focus on driving, you have all the time in the car to do, whether it's a conference call, watch a movie, or anything. That's why if you look at the Cybercab design, it has a big screen, and we've started doing Cybercab rides in our factory in Austin. And when you go through that experience, soon customers would be able to do it in not too distant future, and then you'll understand why that connectivity becomes so important.
Great. And then Colin, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just if I would follow up on Robotaxi, if I look at the launches, you've been adding cities, but the number of units is still, looks like based on media reports, sort of in the dozens as opposed to hundreds. Why not just sort of scale up Austin or one or two cities before adding cities, and sort of what do you need to sort of get that higher volume numbers in a major city? What sort of is the roadblock to sort of adding more vehicles on the ground?
Yeah, the reason we have been expanding across different cities instead of just doubling down on a single city is that we want to make sure that our stack is very general one. It is a general one. We just want to both prove to ourselves and to other folks that it is working across a lot of different cities without too much effort per city. And that's what we see internally. And then, as Elon mentioned earlier, the growth rate has been literally exponential. Just it's in the early part of the exponential. That's why it's hard for others to comprehend. In terms of miles versus the vehicles, since these vehicles operating the robotaxi fleet drive basically continuously, as opposed to human drivers who use vehicles for maybe a couple hours a day or something like that, these vehicles are in mostly continuous operation, which means that even for a few vehicles, you can get a lot of miles out of them. And that's why we are tracking the amount of unsupervised miles or just the number of vehicles or something like that. And we want to be operating in a very efficient fleet. So all of the work that goes into the efficiency makes it even more so that we get a lot of miles per vehicle available in the fleet.
Yeah, and just to add further to this, think of it, we're trying to scale this, and we're trying to make sure that there are different kinks which would be there. And there are things not just on the software front, on the operation front, which we're also trying to tackle. So that's why we're trying to have a broader footprint to try and make sure before we go really high in terms of deployment, that we are able to sort these things out in a smaller fleet in a controlled manner.
Yeah, one of the things for Cybercab should be noted is because it is a new vehicle chassis, we need to accumulate driving data that is specific to the Cybercab before we can put a lot of them on the road. So unlike say Model 3 and Model Y and our other vehicles, where we've got a lot of vehicles on the road, millions of vehicles on the road, we don't have that for Cybercab, so we actually have to accumulate miles with Cybercabs that are retrofitted with steering wheels and brakes, acceleration braking pedals, that kind of thing, to calibrate to the Cybercab chassis. So you'll see, as we are confident about that, the number of Cybercabs in cities will increase dramatically.
Great. Our next question is
Travis,
from, oh, yeah, go ahead, Lars.
If I can
Yep.
just add like one thought here. The other reason I just want to like point out is, TCO, transportation regulatory situations are different city by city, state by state. There's not a federal, framework to do that. And so the reason we're expanding city by city is to make sure that we're meeting all of those one at a time, and we're satisfying, all of the requests of each individual city and in every way we can. And so we have to expand, to each city to meet those requirements, and we'll continue to do so. And until all of what Ashok and Vaibhav and Ashok said, we'll follow with the scaling.
Thanks, Lars. The next question is coming from Walt from Lightshed. Walt, please unmute yourself.
Thanks. Just a quick follow-up for that Lars comment. I mean, the NHTSA administrator, Jonathan Morrison, was just on CNBC. He already, was trying to get rid of the pedal and said, I forget his exact term, but it seemed like he wanted to get rid of the steering wheel. It seemed like that would be a gating factor. But is there other things that you need at the federal level to really kind of unlock your ability to ramp Cybercab?
I mean, the short answer is no. I mean, I think we have a great relationship with NHTSA and Director Administrator Morrison especially. And I think they're just following through with what the public wants and the world knows is coming, and they're trying to stay ahead of it and make sure that they're doing the right things in place. So we've been open and honest with them for the last couple of years about what our plans were and what we're doing, and I don't want to say we're in lockstep, but I feel like we have a partner there, and we're working together on it.
Got it. And then just, Elon, it's kind of a roadmap question, I guess. Starlink obviously is integrated in Cybercab, and you guys just talked about the connectivity for watching movies, but what about the flip side of that? Can the Cybercabs become remote hotspots for Starlink Mobile? And then similarly, roadmap question on the Semi, when do you anticipate looking at autonomy for the Semi? Because that seems like a pretty sizable market as well in terms of autonomous trucking and the need for it, given what's going on in our country right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There, as you allude to, there is a really serious shortage of truckers. So there just aren't enough people around who want to drive trucks, which are crucial for transport throughout America. So an autonomous Semi is actually going to be very important to address the shortage of truck drivers. And obviously will be great for improving safety and making it easier on truck drivers to have a self-driving Semi is going to, I think, dramatically improve safety and comfort for truck drivers that use this as a Semi. Since the units, the total number of units of the Tesla Semi is still low and will continue to be a very small percentage even by the end of this year of our total vehicle fleet, it makes sense for us to focus our efforts, our self-driving efforts, on our high volume vehicles, so Model 3 and Y, and solving self-driving and really getting to the point where it's generalized, unsupervised self-driving for those vehicles, and Cybercab. So we expect to get self-driving working on the Tesla Semi probably around the end of this year or early next year. But I just don't want it to be a distraction on the march of nines of self-driving, of safety for self-driving on 3Y and Cybercab. That's so that it's taking a bit of a backseat for the next 6 months or so for autonomous Semi. But it will be, it will definitely be a big working next year and in time for the scale up to high production of Tesla Semi. For communications, yeah, I think there's an interesting angle there where you could use the Starlink terminals that are in the Tesla cars as like sort of cell towers, I suppose, or connectivity towers, basically for providing relays on the ground to cell phones and to anyone who would like Wi-Fi, basically. But yeah, I mean, it's a different subject, but obviously one could do that with the stationary Starlink terminals too.
All right. Our next question is going to come from Will at Truist. Will, please unmute yourself.
Great. Thanks so much for taking my question. Elon, you teased us a little bit about sort of the supply chain relative to Optimus, highlighting how difficult it's going to be, but we'd be really interested to understand what your propensity is to manufacture semis for this yourself. When we think about microprocessors, microcontrollers, actuators, and other semiconductors that are going to be used, it occurs to me that you have many that are commercially available. You have an option to design some but have them made at third-party fabs. You also have the option potentially to design and make them yourself. What should we think about your propensity to source these components in these different manners?
You're talking about making like microcontrollers and small, like the various computers that are in the car that operate, like the steering system and the braking system.
No,
that kind.
I'm talking about for Optimus, not for
Optimus has a lot of really specialized power electronics and circuit boards. It's all Tesla design stuff, but it is fabricated by suppliers. For Optimus 4, which will be built in Austin, that will be a much more vertically integrated supply system for Optimus 4, and that would we'd aim to have an order of magnitude more production of Optimus 4 than Optimus 3. So it's sort of aspirationally 10 million units a year versus 1 million units a year of Optimus 3. But with all the caveats there, which is insanely difficult to scale production. Optimus 4 will be much more vertically integrated. So probably doing a lot of the sort of PCB work in-house for that.
As a follow-up, well, first, maybe you could talk about the timing as to when Optimus 4 should, let's say, start production. But the actual follow-up I wanted to ask was the plan to upgrade hardware 3 to hardware 4 in order to be able to process, I suppose it's version 15 of and future versions of FSD. Is that still the plan to do hardware upgrades on the cars?
I think it's going to make sense to upgrade all cars that have less than hardware 4, almost any cars that have cameras, basically, because otherwise it would be probably too many modifications. But anything that's got sort of that's set up for cameras, it'll be financially sensible at some point to upgrade them. But I think we'd want to upgrade them to the next generation of like next generation AI board. So it would be either like we have an upgraded AI4 chip that's sort of a medium, sort of a moderate improvement over AI4, probably reaches production around the middle of next year. And then there's also AI5, which hopefully is in volume production around the middle of next year. AI5 will initially go into Optimus. And actually making very good progress. So the Tesla chip team is really doing great work and making incredibly fast progress on AI5. And I'm very excited about the design of the Tesla AI6 chip. I think it's going to be the best edge computing chip in the world. And if somebody's got a better one, I'd like to meet that person and shake their hand because the AI6 chip is just so good. So I think I think it's going really well on the chip front. Yeah, and again, I'd like to thank TSMC and Samsung and Micron for the support.
Great. We are coming up on the hour, but we're gonna try to squeeze Dan in. So from Barclays, Dan, please unmute yourself.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'd like to ask about the pace and path of CapEx. Elon, in the past, you've said that you'll spend as much as you can, but really efficiency seems like it's the gating factor. So, to what extent right now in this CapEx cycle is your pace of CapEx effectively capped simply because spending any more would be done in an inefficient manner? And to what extent is the pace of CapEx really the primary determinant right now in unlocking the different supply constraints that you have?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've actually, what I've asked the Tesla team to do is like really we should be spending on CapEx as fast as we can spend, as fast as we can without it being too wasteful. So we're not trying to aim for like some extremely high efficiency capital spend because that would slow things down. So it's a balance between like how much sort of capital efficiency versus time. So if we can be, it's okay to be a little less capital efficient if we get things done sooner, because that's actually going to be the higher NPV outcome for the company. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how things are going. I mean, we're doing an incredible amount of construction and production growth in so many different arenas simultaneously. I don't think there's ever been a company that's done this at the scale, maybe proportionately back when Henry Ford did the Model T or something like that, or World War II when companies were making, it had to sort of scale up weapons production. But I think probably this is the fastest industrial scale up since World War II in America.
Yeah, and I will just add a little bit on that. Basically, if you look at it, all our spend on CapEx is trying to do productive assets, right? We're basically scaling factories, whether it's Optimus, whether it's Cybercab, whether it's LFP factory, which went into operation earlier this year, or the semi factory, or even putting in a semiconductor fab in there, as well as, we are trying to get a lot of solar manufacturing in the US. In fact,
Yeah,
our
very important.
plans-
This is underrated, by the way. Just go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to, basically, the amount of solar manufacturing which happens in the US, we're just going to multiply it with an order of magnitude. And none of these things are easy, right? Because what you have to do is, in order to build a factory, you have to start from ground zero. So just so you know, again, I don't think we have shared this. We end up being the general contractor for almost all our construction facilities because we are doing that much construction. And so going back to what Elon was saying, we're going at a very rapid scale. And yes, this means that we are doing a lot of things all at the same time. And that's why, we just have to go as fast as we can, humanly make things work in the real world.
Yeah, but our CapEx efficiency, I think, is off scale good.
Already. And then Dan, did you have a follow-up that we can wrap up with?
Yeah, maybe just a quick question on energy storage, which I think is a key topic here. Maybe you can just address, to what extent is energy storage going to be supply constrained for the foreseeable future, and then just to what extent are the deployments right now the typical peak shaving that you'd see at utilities versus you've talked about in some of your materials, for battery storage, addressing the quality of power issue for data centers, given the sharp fluctuations in power use. where you have an advantage given software or power electronics. So just what is that demand curve right now between data centers versus just broader peak shaving for utilities?
Well, it's still mostly, it's not just peak shaving, but it's also grid balancing. So it's not just like the packs are on briefly, but for balancing power from wind generation and solar generation, batteries are awesome. I mean, the solar battery combination will be how the vast majority of energy in the world is produced in the future. That's already, of course, how all of the Starlink satellites are powered, is with solar panels and batteries. So, and you can just think of Earth like a giant satellite. There's far more power available from the sun than anything else by far, and we think power constraints are going to be there already are a major issue for AI. You know, just turning on the AI computers, the AI compute demand is so high that people are having, even the so-called, you know, the hyperscalers are having trouble turning on their AI compute and finding the power, and then smoothing the power with, you know, especially for the training runs where the power cycles dramatically in a very short period of time. You can have, during a training run, the power consumption can drop by 70% for 100 milliseconds, and you really need fast-acting advanced power electronics to be able to smooth out these massive changes in power, especially during their training runs. So that's why SpaceX has bought so many megapacks for the data centers. It's actually mostly for smoothing out the power for the training runs. But it will also be useful for being able to tap more power from the grid by you know, if you tell utilities that they can you know, that they will not need to supply power during the worst hours or the worst days of the year because the batteries can handle it, then that makes it much easier for them to give you power. In fact, I mean, probably the best way to scale total energy production in the United States is simply using batteries, because there's, I think, around 1.2 or 1.3 terawatts of power production in the US, but the average power usage is only half a terawatt. So you've got 2.5 times as much power generation as the average usage. That means you could potentially double the energy output of the United States just with batteries. So we see demand for Megapack being very, very high in the future.
Alrighty. That is all the time we have for today for Q&A. We appreciate everyone's questions, and we look forward to talking to you next quarter. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
James, what happened to your shirt?
Oh, it's hot in here.
Yeah.
It's only one button.
It was the call, huh? The call?
Maybe a little.
He's getting sexy. That call was getting very sexy. There was a few things there that was very shocking. It was very good news according to what Nick was predicting.
And
I
some
like
very
the way
bad
they
news.
did this. Wait, what was the bad news?
Oh, we were in different calls, weren't we? Okay, you can go first.
Yeah.
No, what was the bad news? Start with the bad news.
Okay, well, don't act like I'm crazy. Just look at the stock market right now.
Yeah.
They essentially sidestepped every question. They pretty much told F you to all the shareholders and their say questions.
Yeah.
They didn't actually give any clarity. Like Jeff was saying, like, we get it, safety, we get it. Give us something. They gave us nothing. And so we're sitting here really knowing no more in what's going to happen for this rollout, other than, yeah, they gave us some nice little tidbits and something. I know I see what Sawyer and Omar, everyone's posting. Great. That's great for the hopium, but that's the vast majority of people listening right now. They're pissed off about it. And I'm just relating. I'm trying to at least have their voice in here. It wasn't a great earnings call. Like, they literally, Elon did
He's sick.
bad.
He's sick. He said he's sick.
Yeah, CFO did bad, and then they left Ashok there to try to save the day, and he did his
Ashok
best.
did great. He did great.
Best. But that was hard to overcome, and the stock's gonna keep falling as I'm watching right now. Just it's getting more aggressive. So it wasn't a great call as far as what they needed to do, in my opinion. If you care about the stock price, but there were some interesting things. I won't lie. There was definitely some interesting things in there.
Maybe.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, the most important thing about Tesla today is robotaxi. We all kind of agree that that's the case. Okay, robotaxi. You had Ashok talking to you about robotaxi instead of Elon, instead of anyone else. What did he say? We're already running early versions of version 15. That's ahead of schedule than more people thinking about. 7 major improvement tracks, all running on parallel. It's ridiculously safe and capable. All our best, all starting to work. All our bets are thinking, we expect payoff to be great. Okay. He did say that robotaxi growth has been exponential. They talked about how many miles that they've been driving per week, and it's growing exponentially. And we expect to see exponential growth in foreseeable future. This is coming from Ashok.
Can we pause
Not
there?
Elon. If Elon said that, I would completely discard it. But if Ashok said it, it sounds very much more in line with what I would expect at this point. Robotaxi growth has been exponential, and we expect to see exponential growth in foreseeable future.
Can we just pause there for a second?
Yeah.
And I always know when Jeff wants to say something. So Jeff, please chime in after this. Tell me I'm an idiot if you want. But it can't be on one hand, we've got the CEO who you're saying we can just disregard what they say. And he's sitting there saying, oh, it's about safety, all this yada, yada, yada. And then we have the Ashok who's coming in here saying, we have perfect safety. We haven't seen anything. It's like, okay, so then where is the growth? Exponential growth? BS. Maybe on miles, maybe 1 to 2 to 4, maybe that's the exponential, but it's not like, come on, like guys, come on.
Can I just jump in here for one comment? So for the last 2-3 weeks, it was a big discussion on RetailX about should they do prognostic or should they not? So the problem is whatever they do always, well, should they give guidance? Should they give less guidance? Should they be more deferring in guidance? So damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Because
they didn't though.
Well, exactly.
They never have.
So this, apparently they said half of America last year. Well, they didn't do that anymore. But I think there were quite a lot of breadcrumbs in the whole story, and not only breadcrumbs. I mean, obviously Ashok is somebody who is, as an engineer, on his subject, so he gives us stuff that looks tiny to us, but that is real progress. Oh, there he goes. There he goes. That was Nick. Take it over. I don't know where he's gone. Herbert, I give it back to you. I tried.
Oh, okay. Well, Jeff. Oh, there he is. He's back.
Sorry, my wife was screaming and my son was choking for a second.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I thought you left me. Oh.
No. Just I know the Nick. I know the sound, the pitch. I'm like, gotta go.
Yep, gotcha.
All good.
He's all good.
So I don't think it was nothing. I think it was actually very precise. 380,000 miles unsupervised now. 20% of all driven miles, if my calculations are right, are now unsupervised. That is still nothing compared to Waymo. Waymo is it's about 1% of what Waymo is currently doing. But, we're going somewhere. 10% growth in the miles driven per week. So that gives you obviously this somewhat exponential curve. And I think the most important for me was that they will concentrate on the semi FSD end of the year once Cybercab and version 15 and all that and the March of Nines is ready. I think we now have actually a much more precise timeline on when they will be ready.
You would have said the same thing about the half of America. It's the same type of comment, and it came from Elon again. So like we can dismiss that, right?
Did you guys get though when he said this? Okay, what are we doing? What is the explanation why everything's been slow? Okay, so they gave 4 reasons why they have been slow. But he said this. He goes, we want to do a generalized launch, right? Generalized scale. What they mean is we need to do small cities, but just a handful of them. Once we think we got everything going, he said something to the effect that it's going to go scale across the U.S. instead of going city by city from then on
Full
to
scale.
zero launch time. That's what they're going after. So that
Entire-
is something they've never said before, right?
And Nick, please reassure some of our viewers. They think we have a beef. We never had a beef.
Why
We
does
won't
everyone
have
think we have a beef?
There's no beef.
The only beef that we have is the steak that you and your husband haven't made for me yet.
Yeah,
I got
and the wine
like-
that they have a winery.
I
They've never
know,
given me wine. I don't know. I'm like, where's that? They said the case to Larry.
He
Just
paid
kidding.
for it.
I don't.
He paid for it.
Oh, there you go.
All right, Jeff, please say something.
Yeah, I think earnings calls typically start with some sort of CEO commentary, or it happens at some point. I think they should just stick to objective statements, and in that, I'm not trying to tell Elon what to say, but I think when you got to the real robotaxi update from Ashok, it was one step further into what you need to hear or what you can hear on an earnings call. And I would have just literally deleted the rest of the commentary
From
because
Elon.
It would have
But
been,
the-
it would have
but-
been better. It would have been better if they just deleted it and then went to a more objective update versus just saying it's difficult.
Well, I think we learned now why they did that. Why Elon's comments were so generic at the front was because they were waiting for Ashok to just give a much more complete robotaxi report.
Well, he did and he did and he didn't. So he did get into more objective information. It is very clear that they are going for zero incidents. So what they're doing is they put a governor on you when you're rolling out a product, especially a safety critical product, you have to determine the install base of the product, how many you're going to let out based on the current performance of your reliability model of when it can fail. I did this for a living in another industry. So what they're saying is and what you do during that process is you have an expected failure rate and you align that with how much product you're going to put out. What they're saying is essentially they want to keep the number at around zero or very close to perfection. So what they're doing is they're kind of flatlining, not flatlining, they're saying they're compounding vehicle growth. And when you're starting from a very low number, I think you compound for a period of time. But at some point, that number is going to get much. If you're doing 10%, 10%, 10% on top of this much larger number, it's going to get to be a very big number. So I think the better analyst question is are you going to keep up with and or accelerate the compounding rate? And I think that was a very difficult way that they expressed robotaxi growth to investors. I think it was difficult for investors to understand what are you saying? Like, how many are you going to put? 5,000, 10,000, 100,000? Instead, they expressed it in a very kind of typical way of like Tesla would do, which is just in compounding off of a current base. But that's what they're doing. They're telling you we can't afford an incident. If we have a problem, we're going to have a big media issue. We're going to have a big regulator issue. So how do I get the regulators on my side? How do I keep the media from destroying the demand for the product? I basically go out with zero issues. How do I stay at zero issues? Something has to get better. So the software has to continue to get better, because if you keep growing the install base without improving the performance of the system, your probability of having a non-zero issue and that 0 out of 380K miles is going to be much higher. So that's why they're doing what they're doing. What they didn't tell us is they referenced a March of Nines, which is basically what's your failure rate in if you can express it in ppm, parts per million, for example. What is your failure rate of a million opportunities, for example? They didn't give us a number of like, we were here in January, we're then here in March, and now in June we're here. If you're gonna, my only criticism would be is if you're gonna reference March of Nines, then you should probably find some sort of normalized way to share your KPIs of like what you're doing and why you're doing it. So that's why I think there was some downward pressures. That we started off with this kind of this summary of it being very difficult and we're just going to be safe, which is Elon is that that is the truth. Like he's basically saying, I don't want a rash of issues just for vehicle growth. I want the issues at this, 0 to single digit level, and I'll allow you to grow units as you improve the system. And they know that. They can internally test and know what they're doing. And that's why they're doing this controlled rollout of V15. Finally, don't worry about the version of software. This threw people off on the last call. They will call anything they want, V14 or V15, it doesn't matter. So what they're running right now is probably 3 of those 7 features they talked about are running on a version called V15 XXX in robotaxis. That was new information on the call. So it's here. But the question is when do 7 of 7 features go in, and when is it fully approved and meeting their 9's requirement? So in short, I think they could continue to work on these calls. Like they've improved the earnings deck, but they've got to work on these calls where they kind of grab the investor base and say, look, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. We're going to have probably the fastest return on investment in like modern AI history. And this is how we're going to get there. And here's some actual numbers versus where we're at. And by the way, we told you this a couple of quarters ago. We're actually here. This is why we've actually figured it out. And going forward, we think we're going to compound at a good rate. They could have just said it like that, and I think it would have been received a little bit better. I'm being a little bit of a Monday morning quarterback, but I'm also being a realist on it too.
Can I just real quick add color to when they talk about March of Nines? That's not just like some general phrase. For example, like in cloud computing, most cloud providers like AWS, for example, they commit for their general workloads that they have 5 nines of availability, meaning 99.999 of availability uptime. So when Elon and them say 99.999999999, it's like you're taking something that's an actual objective measurement and you're just making it into not a measurement. So it's not like just some colloquial phrase that people say. It's an actual standard that exists in the industry. And to Jeff's point, they're not even telling us how many nines they're looking for or where we're at currently. So we don't even know what to measure against. So it is so anyway, I just want to, in case people don't know that, it is a real thing. It's not just some thing that we say.
And I've got a couple of little things to say, at least my top 5 or 6 takeaways from it. One was the V15 of the Cybercab. And I know that, Jeff, you and I never disagree, but you said they can put any label on anything. But if we go back in time, V15 was the 10 billion parameter big model, large model. So if they're referencing that, they're probably referencing a larger model. So that was, for me, a big positive, that's already running around on the streets. The unsupervised robotaxi miles growing up, 10% per week is huge. When you compound that, it's massive. Get full self-driving on the Tesla Semi, we covered that already. Micron, a significant memory allocation at very good prices deep into the future. We all know what this memory is for. It's for Optimus. It's 4x the amount of memory required for a car. Cute puppy, by the way. I got one at my feet too. I'll bring her up in a second. And then, and then what else? Explosive FSD growth. We got that earlier. So they're kind of the big takeaways. The breadcrumbs, I think, Alexandra, you referred to them as. I thought they were all very positive, considering we didn't get much else today. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm a little surprised. So I get the fact that, so EPS missed, got it. Gross margins missed. That's going to weigh on the stock, got it. The opener for the call, we can be critical, each way, but we know what we have there. But man, when they got to, Elon, do you think that it makes sense to merge Tesla and SpaceX and let's turn it over to the GC? And the GC's like, well, yeah, and here's some reasons why that makes sense. And then they turn it back to Elon. Well, here's some more reasons why it makes sense. I'm surprised at that, and maybe that stopped some of the bleeding on the stock. But I mean, that is implied that this is coming and there's
100%.
every intention of doing it, and we just don't know the timing. But there's going to be some premium. We just don't know where the starting point is on the premium.
Well, if there can be a premium at this point with SpaceX.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. So anyway, I found that interesting that A, they took the question, and B, it's almost like it's almost like this is going to be entered into like the story of like why there will be a merger of these companies. It's almost like this, oh yeah, we started answering questions openly during the SpaceX IPO. It was, asked of Gwen, and now it's being asked on earnings calls, and they're not avoiding it.
Yeah,
I know what Herbert and Alexandra think.
Yeah, let me maybe jump on that. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear everything because my husband picked up the Tesla who had a flat tire, and I had to do the payment. Done. It's all good. That all happened today already, so it's replaced. And I could pay it with Tesla credit. So thank you to everybody who used my referral code, because that now just paid our flat tire. But that's not the story. I wanted to go back to the synergy on the merger. First of all, well done on the bank analyst, which also means that Tesla didn't give them any instructions to ask or not ask. So he went there, and I think that was right to do it. And, it's not as if we made up this topic. It's on CNBC. It's obviously, Shamat has been talking about it for months. So this topic is on the thing. What Elon did, I've never seen him do that before. He kicked it down to legal. Brandon is usually not in these calls. Brandon is general counsel. I love the guy. We met him, Herbert. We met him in November at the shareholder meeting. Remember? When we met some of the Tesla executives.
He said he watches Cyber Bulls.
Exactly, he did. And so for Elon to bring the question, to let the question come up, to answer it a little bit, and then to kick it to Brandon, I think that was already very significant. What he said then, and remember he had said a couple of minutes before that, even half an hour before that TerraFab deserves its own event, the groundbreaking of TerraFab, the announcement of where it's going to be and all that. So back to the synergies for the merger. He addressed only, I got all the doggies. He addressed only the many synergies, the many collaborations, that there is more and more overlap, especially TerraFab, then Starlinks in the cybercabs, Grogs in the cars, whatever. Whoops, gave it to Brandon. Brandon then says, SpaceX is obviously a great partner. We've already invested $2 billion at the beginning of the year. And with that, we wrap it up. So they really, really, really did not give much away. So the only breadcrumb that I took from it all is that the TerraFab event is close, and the TerraFab event will be in that, because you will have never seen a roadshow of what is coming, if I'm right on all these dates, of selling the synergies. The 3 months between the announcement and the shareholder votes is going to be dedicated on synergies. We'll have our heads smoking. We don't want to hear about it anymore at the end. You will see. And the TerraFab event in there is one. Another one that's in there, it's the Roadster, because the Roadster has been done in collaboration with SpaceX. So all these events will be used to showcase the synergies between the two companies. Do I feel today actually more validated? Of course I do. Will I be devastated on August 4th if there's nothing happening? Of course I will. I'm just a stubborn old lady who thinks that's what's going to happen. Maybe I'm right. Most probably I'm not. Just want to put that disclaimer out there.
Yeah, I like that, Alexandra, because MacroHeart, I've been expecting that to come out, and why hasn't it come out? Maybe they part of their roadshow event. Yeah.
I think the roadshow started already.
It was kicked off today. There is no doubt, because synergies of the two I mean, you're right. It was already kicked off a little bit with the IPO of SpaceX, but that was still, I mean, the thing, I actually went back to the S1 yesterday because I really, I tried to counter check myself whether I got fooled. Not very easy, because you always want to believe your own thoughts, right? But I went back to this S1 and how they structured it, and I was thinking, no, I wasn't fooled. This was all done with a certain intention. Now, what did they forget? They forgot options trading. They forgot that many of those that have late lockups and want to get out of SpaceX and have made a lot of money and need to get out because of fund management ratios or whatever, started to hedge and lock in their prices through option trading when it was at 190, at 200 and whatever. So that is what started derailing this whole index purchases, staggered lockups and all that strategy. The strategy on paper looked perfect to arrive at a $200 SpaceX price with a great multiplier offering a great premium for Tesla. Now at 115 and 350, I don't know whether we're already at 350, but whatever, it will cost SpaceX more money. I think that the crucial part that is not assured is the shareholder vote of Tesla, and that has to have a price tag on it that makes it very attractive to retail Tesla. And yes, if he gets the big funds in, plus his own voting rights and all that, he probably can secure 50% without a lot of retail, but what a look that would be. You want to make sure that a merger of this type is really cheered on by your retail base that has been standing next to you for decades now. So that's where I'm on all that.
Yeah, thank you. Robotaxi, I wanted to mention this, Nick, because you said that you didn't hear any guidance. The guidance I heard was Elon said, we will continue to scale very rapidly. It looks like more than 10% a week in terms of miles driven. And then Ashok, I believe, repeated that statement, the 10% per week.
My guess is CERN is in the lab right now trying to compute how many vehicles that is. Because you can get something from that. We should try to understand that.
And then they talked about how a Cybercab is designed to run continuously. And so even though you see small numbers of vehicles, they're running more than, let's say, Waymos are in terms of miles driven.
I don't know about that.
I think it can't be that we dismiss what Elon says and then we think what Elon says is accurate. And the whole 10% number is like, that is such a like squint your eyes and look through. It's like we're doing 10% more miles. Okay, well, all right. So now you're gonna make us go and try to figure out this random number. And is it really 10%? Like, or do you just pull that out of, like, is it really 9.9? Is it 11.5? Like, you're telling me it's exactly 10%? It's just, I don't know. It doesn't seem like something I would hang my hat on.
Okay. What about this, Jeff? He said, Cybercab is a phenomenal product. We are matching our production to match the same rate as our growth in miles. That answer the question.
Yeah, I think we just got to go offline and run some math on what we think this could be. You can actually do that. So, and I think they're giving themselves, by not just giving you a number, they're giving themselves some wiggle room because we don't know what the base is. There's some things we just don't know, but I think we know enough to give an estimate with some goalposts around it of like, this is what 10% compounding looks like if you normalize miles into vehicles. And then the production line, it's good to hear that the production line can keep up with 10% compounding on a weekly basis. That's not a small number. This is the other thing that came out of the call for me. Like, they're supply constrained to grow the business. They said it multiple times that at least not on the software sales, not on the AI sales, but at least on the making more cars, making more energy, they have supply constraints to resolve in the battery world and the electronics components world, is what they said. And by the way, those are the longest lead time items in the chain. So what I'm surmising what happened is that they are seeing growth in backlog inside of their window for actually getting supply. And by the way, the rest of the industry, whether it's memory, so memory did three things. Memory increased in price, reduced in supply relative to demand, and they pushed their lead times out. And they can do that when they're supply constrained. They can do whatever they want. And the more they push their lead times out, the more in control they are as the memory supplier. So this is happening a bit in beyond memory as well, and other components. So they said that they're component constrained. What that's telling me is, I think this Iran war, in the price of oil and FSD, I think it's driving more demand than they actually expected.
Agreed. A lot more.
Okay, and I do.
That could have been spun in a way, like
Right, every time.
This is like a really, like, we have record backlog. I mean, Bebop said it. Like, we have 3-year record backlog.
Since
2023 was kind of a pretty big year, I think. We have record backlog for the last 3 years. And oh, by the way, we are chasing supply because our demand is going up so quickly, we can't get parts in fast enough. I think there was a way to, like, supply constraints aren't great, but it also shows that you're not demand constrained.
Yeah, and sell it a little bit. Just communicate something in a little bit clearer and measurable. Here comes CERN, who communicates this well.
Yeah.
CERN?
Okay. Well, yeah, I do. Later, I want to go back and cover. They asked the question specifically. What is the roadblocks of why you haven't expanded Robotaxi, and why did you focus on multiple cities instead of scaling Austin? 4 or 5 Tesla executives answered that question, and each one of them added color, and it was all explaining why they were doing it. So I thought I want to cover that later. But CERN, you sent me some slides. You've had time to look at this. What did you discover?
Well, first of all, you guys have done a great job in covering this. But here are some things I think that are worth looking into a little bit deeper. One of the things that I was excited about, Herbert, if you get a chance to bring the slides up, is the FSD subscriptions. So here is the data that I've been able to parse together. The light blue is kind of estimates. The darker blue is numbers that Tesla has provided us. And the lightest blue there at the top is the most recent quarter. So you can definitely see a ramp up and acceleration in the growth. This is active FSD subscriptions. It includes purchases. If you break it down on the next page by purchases versus subscriptions, I need to double check these numbers based on what I heard. But I believe now that we have about 930,000 purchase FSD and 550,000 subscriptions. So it was about a 200,000 increase quarter over quarter in total FSD purchases or subscribers.
When did purchases end? Wasn't that in
Yeah,
April?
exactly. Q1.
Well, that's for the United States. They were saying that they allow purchases in other markets.
Yeah.
And
But
clearly
they just ended the UK last week.
Yeah. So that will be ending at some point. But for now, they're actually getting quite a few purchases, FSD purchases in those other markets. So that's also quite encouraging. In terms of the FSD take rate on the next chart, this is looking at active subscriptions versus the cumulative deliveries, right? We've got almost 10 million deliveries now. 15% of all the cars that Tesla has ever sold have an FSD subscription or purchase associated with them. Now, of course, not all those vehicles are on the road anymore. So effectively, the number might be higher than this. But anyway, that's kind of an interesting thing. And you can see that that was actually higher than that at one point. And there was a downtrend, and it's turned the corner, and it's picking back up pretty quickly. Now, what confuses me a little bit is this chart. On the call, I think they said something like 55% of incremental deliveries purchased FSD or subscribed FSD. I can't quite come up with those numbers yet, but this is the numbers that I have when I look at kind of year-over-year changes. And because it's year-over-year, it's not a short-term focus. It's more focused over a 12-month period. I've got a 30% incremental FSD take rate right now. The quarterly one, as I calculated it, was 41%. So I've got a little bit of work to do to try to foot my numbers to what Tesla provided us. But either way, really positive. And then the last thing on FSD is the number of miles per subscriber. So this is the quarterly FSD miles driven divided by the average quarterly FSD subscriptions. And actually, I'm sorry, this is a daily mile. So it's now 23 miles a day per FSD subscriber on FSD. That's up from just under 19 last quarter.
That's a huge
So
jump.
more people are subscribing to it, buying it, and they're driving more with it. So that's a good metric to check. Not only are more people buying it, but more people are using it. This was interesting when you look at the revenue trailing 12 months, so the year over year, last 12 months, you can visibly see now an uptick in revenue after 3 long years of kind of a flat line. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come.
And that's over 100 billion for the first time, isn't it?
That's right. Yep. Good catch.
That's trailing. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
That's
finally
trailing
gonna.
12-month revenue.
Yeah, we're
Yep.
finally gonna burst past 100.
And then when you look at
Oh.
the year-over-year growth on the next chart, finally off the floor, year-over-year revenue growth, I think it was something like 16%, 16%.
Sure.
So again, green shoots of encouragement in terms of revenue growth. And then this was something that really impressed me. So they had operating cash flow in the quarter of just shy of $5 billion. And if you're going to increase your CapEx, it's really nice to be able to pay for it with operating cash flow. And so they largely did that. There's certainly been some other quarters where the operating cash flow was north of 6 billion, but close to 5 billion in a quarter is a pretty solid number at this point. And then when you look at the next page, Herbert, in terms of the quarterly CapEx, you can visibly see the increase from this quarter versus the previous quarters. So a massive uptick in their CapEx spend. And then when you consider that what the free cash flow is, so you put the operating cash flow next to the CapEx, and the difference would be free cash flow. If the operating cash flow is higher than the CapEx, then it's positive free cash flow. If it's less, then it's negative. And so if you subtract those two different bar charts, you get the next chart. And you can see that their free cash flow dipped into the negative. But this is much lower than I expected.
Or much
better, I should say.
Not as lower. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not as lower.
it's not as negative as I expected to see.
Yep.
I expected to see something more like what you see on that other chart there that you're pointing at now, the other bar. So I think that's very encouraging that they found ways to use cash flow to pay for the CapEx. But of course, they did say on the call that they now plan to potentially borrow money to help fund some of this CapEx expenditure. But what we have is a company. Well, actually, if you look at the next chart, if you look at the cumulative free cash flow, this $1 billion drop, 1.1 billion almost drop in free cash is just a little chink so far. Now, of course, this may continue to come down, but they've got from the lifetime of the company about $22 billion of free cash flow to play with there. As an investor, I personally want to have a company that has plenty of things to invest money in. That's something that's really exciting. I know a lot of investors look for free cash flow and companies to buy back stock, but would you rather invest in a company that's building the future or one that's just kind of, doing some financial management and buying back their stock? Hopefully it's both at some point for Tesla.
In fact, Søren, I'd love to pick your brain on this because the big debate is, are they spending too much or not enough? And
Well, I would argue it's not enough given the
Exactly.
plan that they have. Yeah.
Exactly. So check this. I don't know if you can see that, Herbert. If you can share that little slide there. It's the CapEx spend. Basically, Tesla's spending less than Walmart, less than Micron. But if you look at the hyperscalers, Oracle, Meta, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, it's a spit in the bucket. So the question is, are they absolutely super lean and mean, or are they simply not spending enough? And for those who think they're spending too much, this should help them re-examine their thesis. For those who think they're spending too little, clearly they are, because none of these other companies are building anything like the scale or going after the TAMs that Tesla's going after. So help the audience understand this. Are they just absolutely incredible with CapEx spend, or they need to blow more?
It's different because it's different. Yeah, it's different things. It's a good chart. They're building fundamentally different things, and they are actually efficient. But Tesla isn't building chatbots solve the world's questions via they're not building that. They're building physical real world AI. And I think they're going to get a faster return and a better ROI actually per dollar spent. I think that's what the data is going to show us in a year or so. I want to go back to this. I mean, I think the biggest thing from this call is this expectation to continue to compound 10% weekly. And CERN, I don't know if you've done any math on what that could translate to in vehicles, but just I was doing the math on the miles, and that's basically doubling robotaxi miles every 7 weeks in a day or two. And then that's almost 2 doublings every quarter. So 90 days from now, there should be, in the next call, there should be multiple doublings of robotaxi miles. So how do you do that if that means either the current cars are going to drive more miles per day, or they're going to add a whole lot more cars, or both. So I think one addition, and then by the way, that's 142x growth in a year. So doubling every 7 weeks, almost 2 doublings in a quarter. And my question for Tesla would be is how long can you stay at a 10% compounding rate? Because the guy that writes AI software that owns the architecture said, I expect to continue to compound at 10% per week, which means the question is there some other constraint in the system? Is it operational readiness? Is it regulatory? Is it whatever? So it would have been a great question for Tesla is you've talked about this 10% compounding and you've committed to it. Your software models are showing that you can continue to do that. And that's actually explosive growth. So what gets in the way of that would be an interesting, and do you have control of it? I think that was one of the biggest takeaways from the call.
Yeah, I can't wait to go back to the transcript and really read that again. I sort of, was it in relation to Cybercab production as well in terms of the scaling?
They said that they're basically going to, and Herbert brought this point up, that they're going to kind of align those two together, which tells me, at some point Cybercab has to be a hardware limitation, but today it doesn't sound like it is. Today it sounds like it's just getting through this qualification loop of I have to translate unsupervised FSD from something that was shaped like a Model Y to something that's shaped like a Cybercab. And that's what Lars told us verbatim in public in the June 26th interview. So we know the step that we're in. It looks like they're at a stage where they're just doing final bug resolution on that because they're putting their employees on public streets. You don't put your employees are real people. Like you don't put your employees on public streets unless you think you've got it and there's nothing massive there from a safety perspective, and you're just trying to clean it up. So I just go back to this 10% miles compounding again. It's kind of we turned the earnings call into a bit of a mystery. So now we have to unpack the mystery and try to understand what do we think that means for vehicle growth. I think it sounds like something CERN would be really good at, but
I'll work on that tonight.
Yeah.
Herbert, the final couple of charts just to share with you, and this is a business line that no one pays attention to, but this looks pretty good. Services and other quarterly revenue, over $4.5 billion. That's a pretty big jump in one quarter. This is the gross margin cumulative. We were excited a few quarters ago when it surpassed zero, when they had made more money, finally made money. And now they've made over 1.5 billion in gross margin cumulatively in this business. And then the other thing that's interesting is the margins on this business now, record 14.1%. I guess now I understand why I'm paying so much for supercharging. There it is. But it's good. Tesla should be making some money on this business. The other way of looking at it is I look at the quarterly revenue per vehicle on a cumulative basis. And on the next chart that's showing that's ticking up now to $450, $460 per quarter per vehicle in the services and other business. So again, this is supercharging, it's used car sales, it's Tesla insurance, it's maintenance, service and maintenance. It's all those other things. It's a Tesla diner, the Tesla shop, all the stuff that doesn't fit in energy and stuff that doesn't fit in the auto business.
Thank you, sir. Always do great work. And all of you, Alexandra, thank you for the research you were just doing recently. And we dissected the earnings call. James, thank you as always. You're brilliant. You're the only person that really looks at both the near-term shareholder stock movement, but also the long-term. And then, of course, the experience that Jeff brings in Surprise. Any last comment before we wrap up for the day? Anybody want to make a
Are we
last?
doing an earnings call live for the SpaceX one on the?
We are doing that. I've already arranged some
May I
important
please
panel
get
milestones.
invited so that you can all scream on me that I was wrong? Or
No. Yeah. There could be a massive announcement. Who knows if that happens on that day? But that could something big can happen. But yeah, clearly SpaceX and Tesla are intertwined, as we heard today.
I'm so pleased you're back, Herbert. This is really a job. I mean, CERN even more than me, but managing these calls.
A lot of work. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks,
you,
everybody.
Herbert. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Thanks, Herbert.
Yep.